Thank you all for joining us this evening. I know people are still trying to file in, but it's 5 o'clock and we are going to try to get started. Thank you so much for coming to our very first public hearing for Ogden Valley City Planning Commission. I'm Lisa Arbogast. I'm the chair of this planning commission, and I'm going to give the other commissioners a chance to introduce themselves to you while people are still coming in and being seated. I'm going to start with Angela, who is the vice chair.
That's all I have to say about myself.
Hi,
Angela.
Good morning. Nice to meet everyone.
Aaron Schaefer.
You want to stand up for people back?
Oh, sure. Aaron Schaefer.
Yeah, I'm Tyson Lloyd.
Terry Sangers.
Hi, I'm Fred Blickley. I'm in District 3.
Thank you very much. If we could have everyone please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now please take a moment of silence.
There's a few chairs scattered around, folks, if you'd like to see.
Take a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much. Next, I'd like to introduce our city attorney and our city planner, who are also going to be helping and participating this evening. And our city attorney is going to give an introduction to the public hearing process for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. My name's Corbin Gordon. It's nice to be here. I was able to shake many of your hands. I'm the city attorney. It's a privilege to get to represent you. This is the beginning of a very, very large process. I want to explain what we're doing tonight so everybody understands it as far as where we are in the process and where this goes. The Planning Commission is a recommending body to the City Council. They have been working for the last 3 months to try to get a land use code in place for your city. It's very rare that we would ever have the amount of items on an agenda that we have tonight, but that's just the reality of the situation that we currently find ourselves in. There's currently a moratorium that's in place on the city. That means that no development can occur, people can't pull building permits, and everyone is anxious to get this process done as quickly as we possibly can so that you can move forward with the things that you want to do. As part of that process, there has to be a public hearing on every item that is part of the land use code, which is what we're beginning tonight. We will continue to do this over the next month. Please understand that as a recommending body, what the city or what the Planning Commission does tonight is not final. They're going to be recommending and sending it over to the City Council. The City Council ultimately has the final say. And these items, as they're moved from the Planning Commission, will be coming in front of the City Council. And so there's going to be a lot of meetings here over the next 2 or 3 months. If you're concerned about a particular zone, be paying attention because there will be things that are moving forward. As part of the public hearing tonight, because we've got so many things on the agenda, it's probably going to be impossible to hear everyone's comments. We're going to try to limit, because we have 8 public hearings that we have to hold tonight. We're going to try to limit each one of those to 20 minutes. And we're going to limit each person in comments to 2 minutes so that we can get as many comments in as we possibly can. I do want to emphasize that if you don't get to say something tonight because our time frames simply don't allow it, you can submit in writing at any time in this process. And those will be submitted to both the Planning Commission and to the City Council, and those will be taken into account. So I want to make sure that you do have a voice. And this is a very rare scenario tonight where we've got so many people here, we're going to try to move through. On the agenda, we have listed out 8 items that are going to be public hearings. We're going to do all of those first before we take any discussion from the council, because There's specific noticing requirements that we have to do in order to hold a public hearing. And in order to get these things moved through, we've got to hold the public hearings tonight. So we're going to do all of those to make sure that we get through all of them. And then the planning commission will have the opportunity to discuss and do whatever it is that they're going to do. If you want to make comment, you need to come up. There's a black line right here. Come up, stand there. It's important that you stand there because our camera actually shows you people who's online. So that's important that you do that. Please state your name, state your address for the record. And then when you're done, we do have something. We want to keep a public record of who it was that made comments. So please sign that as you go back. And we've got a timer that's going to be watching for 2 minutes. And so please respect the 2 minutes. We're trying to get as many comments in as we possibly can. The public hearing is emphasis on hearing. The planning commission is here to listen to you tonight. It's not a question and answer back and forth. If you have comments, please make them. If someone has made your comment, please understand that I don't know that we necessarily need repetition. We want to hear as many people as we possibly can if they have a unique perspective. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Lisa, our chair, to begin this process. And thank you all for coming. It's very clear that you're very interested. It's overwhelming to see the amount of people that are here. One last thing, on our agenda, we had the HR zone, which is formerly the FR3 zone. If that is the zone that you're interested in, we had to pull that off of the agenda. And it was not, I think there was a noticing issue there. So if that's the zone you're here for, don't stay because we're not going to be addressing that one tonight. Okay? So with that, Lisa, I'll turn it over.
All right, thank you very much, Corbin. I also want to make sure that we recognize our audience who is online, and so we will try to go back and forth between a comment from someone who's here in person and also then a comment from someone who is online to make sure that those people also are recognized. I'm gonna move right along. The first item is the general plan. We are in item C. On the agenda is to review and provide a recommendation to the city council on the general plan. First, I'm going to ask our Brian Carver, who is our staff planner, to give present the staff report, the review of the proposal.
Sorry for the pause.
There are still 3 seats up there. There's 3? There's 3 and then there's 1 here. So there's somebody that wants to meet down.
This is how it's my notes. It'll be up front.
Yeah, please, Brian.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
I won't turn on the 2 minutes.
All right. Thank you. Yep, I'm
Present
to the public.
Yes.
All right, good evening. I'm Brian Carver. I'm the new planner for Ogden Valley City, and this is a summary of changes to the Ogden Valley City General Plan. In 2016, Weber County adopted a general plan specific to the Upper Ogden Valley, and this document was revised in 2019 Because the vision and content of this plan are still satisfactory to the members of the Ogden Valley City Transition Team and Planning Commission, it has largely been kept intact and is being presented for adoption as a new Ogden Valley City General Plan. There are changes from the original document. These include replacement of references to Weber County Commission, Weber County Planning Commission with Ogden Valley City Council, and Ogden Valley City Planning Commission where appropriate. There has been removal of planning language related to areas of the Upper Ogden Valley that are not included within the newly incorporated boundaries of Ogden Valley City, including Ogden Canyon, Powder Mountain, Snow Basin, and Upper Middle Fork. There are statistical updates to bring the plan into currency, and there are minor additions to texts, goals, and objectives that reflect updated priorities of the Planning Commission, including additional water quality and watershed protection goals for stormwater management, groundwater monitoring, and education and training, noxious weed control, and for removal of transfer of development rights as a focus of density management.
Will those changes be available and we could read them instead of this list? They're
Yes.
online. They're online.
Yep.
Okay, listed on the document. We just read the summary. Hey, did I only did one?
Okay, this is when we are open for public comment, and I think that Corbin just asked them to.
So to formally open the public hearing on this item.
Okay, I'd like to formally open the public hearing on the general plan, the Ogden Valley General Plan. And start taking some public comment. As Corbin said, we're going to need to limit that time, but we want him to come up to the black one.
Make this quick. Some of the proposed updates.
State your name and address.
Thank you. Les Vieira, 744 East Sky Ranch Road, Huntsville. Okay, some of the proposed updates, like removing TDRs and form-based zoning and changing areas like FE3, don't feel like small edits. They feel like meaningful shift in how the general plan is implemented. The overall vision here in the Ogden Valley has been consistent for decades, going back to the 1998 general plan and reinforced in 2005 recreational element. That vision has consistently emphasized protection of open space, maintaining rural character, supporting agriculture, and protecting water and natural systems. As many of you already know, if the valley builds out under 3 acre zoning, what that looks like over time is homes spread out across the entire valley floor, one here, one there, one everywhere, until eventually most of that land is divided up. That's very different from that long-term direction, which is to keep large open areas intact, whether for open space or agriculture, and guide growth more intentionally. Tools like TDRs were meant to help shift where growth occurs, and form-based zoning was meant to shape what that growth looks like, so it's more organized and less scattered. Those tools may not be perfect, but they were part of a coordinated system that was never fully built out by Weber County. So my main question is, if we remove those tools, what replaces them to achieve the same goals? Otherwise, we may be shifting back toward gradual fragmentation of the valley. Given the scale of that shift, it seems like something that should be addressed through a full general plan update with broader public involvement rather than rushed piecemeal changes to the general plan and code during this transition. Thank you.
Last one on the, over here that we haven't anybody. Okay,
My name is Jan Fulmer. Just 3 things I think more or less to consider. Number 1, the general plan mapped out certain commercial hubs in that general plan. Given the way things have been going, do we need all of those commercial hubs? I'm not one to project what we may need because frankly, I haven't been able to keep up with all the development plans that were approved by the county, okay, with little input from the people in this valley. That's number 1. Number 2, I hope that we can consider having some place to have affordable housing. not Section 8 housing. I'm talking affordable housing so we can house in our valley the workers that we need to grow the businesses, hopefully support some of the resort areas, and make us a viable community all the way around, okay? The third thing is, there was one amendment that was added to the Ogden Valley General Plan in 2018 or 19, I believe. The Weber County Commissioners said that they have the authority at their discretion to grant bonus development units to developers, and they, at their discretion, the number of bonus development units. If we have changed all the references to Weber County Commissioners, I hope that amendment was removed. Okay, I just think it's more prudent to have everything upfront in a planning commission and have no one behind closed doors deciding where bonus development units should be granted. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Do we have anybody? Yes. Do we have anybody online? Okay. Anyone else?
Good evening, my name's Scott Kelly, I live on 7210 East, 700 North. And where I live is also known as Stoker Lane. So what's unique about Stoker Lane is it's a gravel road, it's a level 4 road, and I'm fine with that. But what can't change is the elements. We're in the process of a remodel, as there are probably several people in the room, I'm sure they're all interested. But the issue of, I talked to Corbin about it, but the issue of tranching, how we're going to handle permits for minor construction, not platting, developing, zoning type issues, and how we can expedite those processes to help the people that are in the process or already in the middle of a remodel or some type of an expansion, but it doesn't alter, it's completely conforming. So there's a lot of that. And what happens is if the process gets kicked over to the planning commission or the commissioners, is it more of a rubber stamp that's like a staff recommendation? You folks have said, hey, we've been through this with a fine tooth comb. Now we're kicking this over to the commission to say, I don't want to say rubber stamp, but for expedited approval. Because what happens is if we move past June, July, then everybody's dead. All their carry, their A&E, all their engineering expenses are tabled for a year. So just the fact that we live in a place where nature has a huge impact on everything we do. And as a farmer, I'm cyclical. I got things I have to pay attention to there. But at any rate, that was kind of the gist of what I wanted to talk about. And hopefully that helps everybody. There's a million others. I won't go into all of them, but I'm sure they'll all come out.
Thank you. Would you make sure that we have your name and address? And you know? There's no.
My name is Glade McCombs. I live at 6169 East Hummingbird Point here in Huntsville. And I really think it's a mistake to, incidentally, I'm a developer. I'm also a real estate broker. And I think it's a mistake to just rubber stamp with a few minor revisions, a general plan. The general plan has been around for a long time. There are a lot of changes in state code. And there are a lot of changes in development code overall that should be taken into account. I understand that perhaps it's more expeditious to just approve the general plan as is, but I would recommend that maybe you put it in place on a temporary basis until the whole plan can be revised. And so adopt it as is with the minor changes that you're talking about. But then target a date in the near future where you're going to revise the entire general plan. I just think that there's a lot of conditions. First of all, it was started by Weber County, and Weber County did most of the due diligence on that, although they did have input from the city. But the plans have changed up here. We now have a city. There's a lot of revisions that probably should be made as part of that revision of the city. And so my recommendation would be that if you do adopt it as is with minor changes, that you do so on a temporary basis with a date targeted in the near future.
You signed for this, thank you.
Anyone else?
Online.
Do we have anyone online?
I don't know, I don't know.
Not yet. Anyone else?
You're good, you can.
Okay, if we have no further comments, I'd like to close the public hearing on the general plan. And move on. Would like to open the public hearing on adoption of a zoning map, item D on our agenda. I'd like to open that public hearing and begin with our planner, Brian Carver, giving a summary.
All right. For the Ogden Valley City zoning map change summary, the Ogden Valley Planning Commission has presented a recommendation to amend the Ogden City zoning map. Or you know what, I can put this up on the screen too. Let's see. So the commission has presented a recommendation to amend the Ogden Valley City zoning map and change the designated zones of multiple properties throughout the city. The intent of this change is to replace zones that are not being carried forward from the Weber County zoning map, attempt to match current land uses more accurately with zoning regulations, and more accurately represent the intent of the Ogden Valley General Plan.
It's not up to. Sorry, I just did it, sorry, I'm done.
Well, that's okay. Okay. So the zoning districts proposed to be eliminated. The planning commission proposes not to carry forward the following zones from Weber County that do not reflect the desired characteristics of the community. The gravel G land use zone, the residential manufactured housing RMH 1-6 zone, and form-based zone FB. Properties zoned using these designations is proposed to be rezoned as follows. Gravel G will be rezoned to Agriculture Valley AV3. This change will prohibit gravel extraction as a future use within the valley, but existing extraction operations will continue as a non-conforming use. Residential manufactured housing RMH 1-6 will be rezoned Commercial Valley Recreation or CVR1. This change will remove manufactured housing subdivisions as a permitted use and will allow the formerly zoned RMH 1-6 property to be used similarly to neighboring properties. Form-based or FB will be rezoned to the designated zone prior to designation as FB, primarily Agriculture Valley AV3 or Forest Valley FV3, with one parcel being designated as Commercial Valley CV2 as an exception due to its existing commercial use and adjacency to parcels currently zoned for commercial use. This move is a temporary land use change to replace a zoning designation that will not be carried forward from the county ordinances while the city evaluates new standards for higher density and mixed use developments. This change will have no effect on existing development agreements. A selection of parcels zoned Forest Valley FV3 will be rezoned to Agriculture Valley AV3 to more closely match existing uses and community characteristics. These parcels are illustrated approximately in the map below. The intent of this change is to encourage agriculture as the primary use on the valley floor properties while providing for low-density residential development. More intense agricultural uses are permitted in the AV3 zone. Detailed comparisons are on the next page. But that's the summary.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah.
Okay, I would like to open the time for the public to comment. If you would like to come forward and make any comments on the proposed zoning map, please do so now.
Hello, my name is Shane Dunleavy. I'm representing Eden Valley Opportunity, and I thank you. Oh, sorry, 3718 Wolf Creek Drive is our address. Thank you for your time. I appreciate all the work you're putting in. This is a monumental undertaking. I can't even imagine. You have recommended rezoning our property from form-based to AV3, and I'm referencing parcel number 224-06-0002. This property's uses and vesting is governed by a master development agreement. No change in the zoning is going to change those uses. We all understand that. The one thing though is AB3 has no resemblance to the actual uses this property will have. It will be mixed use commercial. This definitely goes against standard land use practice, and it also creates a legal inconsistency the city's going to have to deal with going forward. The other issue we have with this is downzoning from a commercial zone to a residential zone will cause us some immediate economic harm. We also view it as a taking and we'll treat it as such. Our lenders require it be commercial. They will call the note if we are downzoned to residential. Finally, there's two parcels that are 1,500 feet to the southwest of us, or I'm sorry, southeast of us, and I think you referenced them in there. One of them being rezoned to CB2. They were originally AV3 like we were, yet they're being treated different than we are, which we don't quite understand that inconsistency. We would hope that in the future we'll develop a master development overlay zone, so those projects that have a master development agreement and have their own ordinance and governing vestings will just be referenced through the development agreements and not create these inconsistencies we're going to run into. Anyway, I appreciate your reconsideration of your recommendation for our property, and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Is there anyone online? Okay.
Good evening, my name's
I'm sorry.
Name is Ron Gleason, Sunrise Drive in Eden, and I'd like to echo what Shane said. I appreciate all the time and efforts that you as individuals have volunteered for this. When we look at the general plan, section 1.1 says additional density should not be authorized in the Ogden Valley planning area above what is allowed with current zoning. By removing the G zone to AV3, you're creating more development rights. 1 9-acre parcel will go to 3 AV3 rights. So you are increasing development rights and increasing density. By removing the manufactured home and converting that to CVR1, you're creating approximately 61 new development rights and density that would be the maximum under the CVR1. So I think you need to rethink how you're going to, what zones you're going to apply there and not create any more development rights. It goes, it's stated right in the general plan as a goal. The other point with this is if you're making rezones and or want to continue to recommend creating density, what's the message you're sending when the moratorium is lifted? We know that there were 4 rezones that were tabled in December of 2025 by the Weber Commission, and we can expect those to be right back in front of this body. So if you're going to make these arbitrary decisions, how are you going to treat rezones coming forward? A couple other things, and again, I put this in writing, so you should have all the details. Spot zoning concerns. On the FV3 to AV3, it says you can write a protest letter. I'd be interested in the criteria you're going to use to say who you are or not going to allow to rezone, and more importantly, are you going to allow islands of FV3 zones to exist within AV3? Something we've always tried to not do with zoning. Other question: when a parcel is rezoned, is there any assessment changes? And if somebody's in Greenbelt, does that affect an assessment change if a rezone occurs? Thank you. Ron.
Yes. Anybody online? Okay, if we have no additional people who would like to come up and make comments, we will close the public comment for item D, zoning map, and move on to item E, definitions. And at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing for definitions and ask our planner, Brian Carver, if he would please provide a summary for us.
Okay, the city of Ogden Valley is considering adopting the zoning ordinance. This is adapted from the language of the previous Weber County zoning ordinance that will create definitions that better address the new community's vision for how property should be used to improve clarity and to facilitate development in zoning ordinance permits. The primary elements changed are removal of words that share definitions such as beer parlor and tavern, and pool hall and billiard hall. Addition of new definitions not included in the Weber County ordinance and clarifying text for existing definitions. We've added agricultural parcel as a definition of a land at least 5 acres in area, anywhere permitted by zoning. Agricultural protection area. This is a voluntary county approved designation under Utah State Code that safeguards working farms from nuisance lawsuits and encroachment. A contractor shop is a building or part of a building or land area used for office construction, storage, and maintenance for the construction trade. A conventional chain business is a business including but not limited to retailers or restaurants which maintains one or more of the following standardized items, which causes it to be substantially identical to more than 10 other businesses regardless of ownership or location, such as a standardized menu or merchandise, a standardized array of products or merchandise, or uniform apparel or standardized architectural design, such as facade, decor, or color scheme, signs, trademarks, and service logos. Manufactured or mobile home is defined as a transportable factory-built housing unit constructed on or after June 15th of 1976, according to Federal Home Construction and Safety Standards Act of 1974. It's designed to be built on a permanent chassis and to be used as a dwelling with or without a permanent foundation. We've added the definition of medical research facility, nightclub. I don't need to take time to read through all these, sorry. Private liquor club and research and development facilities. We're changing the definition of an agricultural arts center with the changes made that these are best suited for commercial agriculture and large scale crop production. We've defined agricultural building as a structure designed for primarily agricultural purposes, and added agricultural parcel. We've clarified definitions to agricultural product sales and the general term for agriculture, clarifying agritourism, redefining it as organized activities conducted on a working farm to invite members of the public for recreational, entertainment, or educational purposes that are secondary to the primary agricultural use of the property. We have removed the term agritourism and replaced with UPIC operation. We've changed the definitions of barn, commercial use, and complete streets. Conference center, dark sky, changing the term of aquifer, redefining hazardous waste, and removing the term lodging house to match to be referred as a boarding house. This is a citywide amendment affecting all properties located within the incorporated boundaries of Ogden City, and there are no map changes proposed by this amendment.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. If anyone has any comments that they would like to make regarding this particular item, please feel free to come forward. We'd love to hear from you.
Good evening, Scott Russo, 7360 East Sky Ranch Road. Appreciate all your volunteerism as well. I think it's great that you're attempting to get some better definitions. But the agricultural building and the barn definition, I think there's still a lot of ambiguity to it. I, for one, have a barn downstairs for livestock, and then I live above it. And I don't know which definition I would fall in. I additionally have another building that I just keep vehicles and have my office in and a little car wash. And my building doesn't say I can store cars to call it a barn. So I think with a little more looking at it deeper, we can clarify that further, but I'd like to at least know when I look at my buildings, what you're all gonna call them. Thank you.
I should just call you cattle, maybe.
Sorry?
I just call you cattle. So,
Anyone else? These arms. Anyone online? Not at the moment. Okay, if we have no further comments, then I'm going to close the public hearing on definitions. I'm gonna move on to item F on our agenda, which is zone AB3. And I'm going to ask our planner, Brian Carver, if he would please provide a summary for you.
All right, the city of Ogden Valley is considering adopting the zoning ordinance adapted from the language of the previous Beaver County zoning ordinance. That will create standards that better align with the community's vision for how property should be used within the AV3 zone to improve clarity and facilitate development within the zone. The primary elements changed are modification of purpose and intent amendments to the land use table, specifying which uses are allowed in the AV3 zone, as well as any special provisions required for said uses. Amendments to section 104-2-4, special regulations and general operational standards, and adding clarifying language and expanding specifications and definitions specific to this code. So we've replaced the original purpose and intent, a more succinct paragraph stating that the zone is intended to prioritize and sustain actively operating agricultural uses while allowing low-density rural residential development that is designed to preserve viable agricultural land, protect groundwater and irrigation systems, and maintain functional open space and reduce conflicts between farming and residential uses. Amendments to the land use table include a 25-foot setback requirement for corrals, stables, or buildings. That should be not less than 25 feet, not located less than 25 feet. I apologize for that typo. There are amendments to animal-related non-commercial uses, including an additional definition of dairy farm and language regarding stabling for horses. It adds short-term rentals as a designated use category.
No. It removes.
They were removed. Right, there are amendments to utility stations, utility uses, including the statement that approval for siting scale and public necessity and compatibility with surrounding uses will be required for utility structures. There is a new language added for farm educational activities, including examples, permitting requirements, small farm events, agricultural processing, some clarification on the washing, sorting, grading, cutting processing of agricultural products for market as an accessory use. And additions to accessory use eligibility, the description of the lawful discharge of firearms within city limits, and the use of agricultural ponds and water impoundments. For on-farm renewable energy systems, the standard is added that non-operational energy systems must be removed. For general operation standards regarding corrals, stables, and animal shelters, structures used primarily for concentrated feeding, confinement, or manure storage shall not be located within 75 feet of any dwelling on an adjoining parcel. A section on irrigation infrastructure and agricultural drainage protection was removed and replaced with additional requirements above. And the intent of these changes is to adopt standards that better align with the community's vision for how agricultural property should be used within the AD zone to improve clarity and facilitate development within the zone.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to open it up to public comment at this time. So if you have a comment you would like to make, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Diane Nauman. I live at 1919 East, 6925 North in Liberty. And I'd just like to kind of make some comments for lots of friends and neighbors that also raise horses, raise livestock, traditionally have done so for a long time. There's a little show called Yellowstone and a guy named Taylor Sheridan that reining horses right now are selling a 2-3-year-old 20,000 a piece to start. And there's a lot of people raising horses on these types of properties. So I'd like the council to consider that in our valley if we are truly staying rural. There's also a lot of 4-Hers and FFA kids that people have to raise their steers and lambs for the Weber County Fair, which supports a lot of kids going to college. So that needs to be considered. Some things in section, your land use table, 104.23. There is language saying that horses may be kept for personal use or limited boarding, provided the use remains accessory to the primary use of the parcel. How is your horses, why does it have to be accessory to something else? That is very unclear. Also, there is language that says outdoor recreation club activities for horse riding. That would include riding clubs, 4-H, pony club. That is not allowed. There is an N there. And Eden and Liberty both have arenas. I'm not sure where those are falling in the zoning, but I hope that doesn't mean we're losing use of those arenas. There is also, I think you're fixing it, saying that corrals had to be located less than 25 feet from a property line. I think that's supposed to be more than or not less than. That language needs to be changed. Okay. There's more. Go ahead and pass.
Oh, yes, you may submit the rest of that in writing.
Okay,
Online planning at ogdenvalley.org.
Okay.
Good evening, Scott Russo, 7360 East Sky Ranch Road. Now, you all are looking at some great improvements through what you're doing with the zoning, but as the homes come up and they aren't landscaped around them, they become homes sitting out in the middle of the pasture. So one of the things I'd like you to consider, which the Weber County never did, is including some minimum landscape requirements that go with people when they're pulling permits so that we can start screening some of the homes so they don't just stand out, especially the really bright ones. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine Brown. I live at 1477 North, 7425 East, Huntsville. It's the Middle Fork area. I live in AV3, and I would like to encourage the valley to approve accessory dwelling units to be allowed on the parcels that between 3 and 5 acres, 3 and 6 acres in that area. We want valley kids to be able to live in the valley, be able to build homes, small homes, whatever size they can afford. And not many of our valley kids, I think 20 and 30-year-olds, could afford a 3-acre parcel at today's prices. The accessory dwelling unit was adopted by Weaver County to help affordable housing, which allows each parcel with a single family home to have an accessory dwelling unit built on their property. We don't want it attached. We want them to be able to have a small home that they can afford to build and live in. And I think that our valley kids, our residents, need to be our top priority, and let's not just cater to the rich. And as far as density goes, the small homes are less landscape invasive than the huge barns and other things that aren't barns that are allowed to be built on everyone's property. And we, better than going to townhouses and, condos. It would just allow valley kids to be able to live here, some of them. Thank you.
Les Vieira, Sky Ranch Road, Huntsville. This is regarding pulling the irrigation review from AB3. The removal of irrigation infrastructure and drainage protection provisions may have important long-term implications. These provisions previously required evaluation of impacts to irrigation systems, preservation of hydraulic delivery capacity, and mitigation of drainage changes associated with development. Without them, there's risk that incremental modifications to irrigation infrastructure and drainage patterns could accumulate over time, reducing system functionality, increasing localized flooding, or conflicts and shifting responsibility for mitigation to property owners or the city. Because irrigation systems, return flows, and drainage pathways are closely connected to the stormwater behavior in the valley, it may also have implications to how runoff is managed under the city's developing stormwater and MS4 program. Given that AB3 purpose includes protection of irrigation systems and agriculture viability, it may be worth clarifying how these functions will be addressed elsewhere in the code to ensure alignment between stated intent and implementation.
I got you. There's someone online, Lisa.
Yeah, I'm gonna unmute you so you can make your comment. Yeah, you're thinking we can't hear you, but I see your mic's unmuted.
Hello?
Yep, we got you.
Go ahead, Lee.
Name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Lee Schussman. I live in Eden, 3384 Fuller Drive. And I have a question about the agricultural zone red line document. And I'm looking at section 104-2 of the land use table. And under commercial use, it has short-term rentals, and we have a red N there in the copy that I have. And I'm just asking, is my copy the current copy that we are discussing? And is indeed it accurate that short-term rentals will be not allowed nor conditioned in our new AV3 zone?
Okay, Lee, I will reach out to you. We will reach out to you after this so that we can answer your question. At this time in the hearing, we are not engaging in discussion, but we will reach out to you afterward and answer your question. That was on advice of our attorney. Do you have any comment that you want to add? No, I don't hear anything else.
My name's Ralph Nauman. I live at 1919 East 6925 North in Liberty. I want to talk about the horses may be kept for personal use and limited boarding. If you want to keep your farm deferral, you have to have a profit motive, or you don't get your farm deferral. So if you have horses and you want to do things like breed them or train them, that should be covered. You should be allowed to do that with your land. So that's my first thing. I think needs clarification. Second one, it says areas used primarily for feeding, confinement, or manure storage shall not be located within 75 feet of any dwelling on an adjoining property. If you have your barn and your stables first, and someone develops the ground next to you, how does that work? So that needs to be clarified as well.
Thank you.
Abe Winsgard, 6659 East 950 South in Huntsville. Some of my concerns are a little bit about the gentleman before me, that 25 feet having to corral from a property line, like in the agriculture world, that just almost is non-existent. I know that it may have been in some rules in the past, but was never enforced or even attempted to. Some of these structures are permanent structures, they're not, you just don't move them. Like some of these have been in for 6-7 generations. So for us to have that in our code to move those is phosphorus. And same with the manure storage and stuff. You say a dwelling, anything can be a dwelling. Like this stuff's been going on for generations and generations and generations, and then we're just going to stick it in here and say that doesn't work anymore, move it, fix it. I'd like to see that changed. There's an awful lot in this that could probably be steered more towards the new move-ins than the existing people that were already here. It needs to be addressed on more than just this stage, and if we could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. What'd you say?
Yeah.
I got another one online. Okay, let's do that.
If you can give us your name and address, then you can start your comment.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. This is Anya Fellison at 5825 North, 3100 East in Liberty. I wanted to say I do agree with the most recent comment that was stated regarding setbacks for AV3. I don't know if we could potentially re-review this. There was previous definition that the county had used that had this at a 20-foot setback rather than 25. And I'm in agreement of potentially reviewing for less restriction there. I also have a second comment regarding something that was mentioned around proposing a minimal landscaping requirement. As far as AV3 and the primary use and it being for animal usage, I'm not in agreement. So I just wanted to share a different perspective on that for opposing any kind of restrictions in landscaping or requirement for this type of parcel.
Thank you.
My name's Matt Clark. I live in Liberty. Families live there 130 plus years. We farm, we take care of our land. We've kept it all this time. The thing that I would say is that I applaud the fact that we seem to be trying to protect the agriculture in this valley, but that setback is ridiculous. What are we supposed to do with the 25 feet? We're supposed to let it grow grass. You're supposed to let it catch on fire. Like, what are we supposed to do with that 25 feet? The last thing you want to do is have double fences. If you make things hard for farmers and ranchers, you're going to drive the cost up. It makes it harder for them to produce things, and they will all leave. You'll be staring at a bunch of condos, a bunch of houses. So I would say I applaud with what we seem to be trying to do with some of the zoning and things, but let's just keep in mind the more rules and regulations and crap that we have to go through adds costs. We don't make any money as it is. We do it because we love it. But I think that a lot of people would agree that that's what makes this valley unique and kind of neat. Nobody wants to just turn it into a bunch of housing. Well, maybe a few of us do, but So that, and I would go back to the setback on the 75 feet too, you know. I've got to, you know, I gotta just say that like, we were here first, you know, most of us were, and the people before me said, they go ahead and develop some things, fine, but don't complain that I'm baling hay in the middle of the night. So the less restrictions, the better for us farmers. That's what I would say. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt. What do you say?
My name's Scott Kelly again, 7210 East, 700 North, otherwise known as Stoker Lane. And all these procedures, you know, the devil's in the details, regardless if it's a developer, if it's a farmer, but perhaps some language that says some subject to pre-existing conditions, and it's probably in there. I'm not sure. I haven't read all the copy, but the thing we need to protect, I think, against the most, Matt just said it too, it's like when that density and that creep starts to creep in around the edges of pre-existing people, and the new folks come in and they say, well, I don't want that in my backyard anymore. It's like, well, you shouldn't have bought next to his backyard. So, you know, there's always that argument. But what I'm thinking is I've participated in projects all over Utah. And I've been to Heber and Midway, and some language to protect against future downzoning. Granted, everything that's in the map that's allowed, but what happened in Heber and Midway is criminal. I mean, they just kept, well, if they got an acre and I cut it into 4, I mean, so some kind of protection language that requires a pretty extensive review by the community, whether it's a CUP or whatever it is, that precludes them from coming in and arbitrary downzoning and manipulating the process, whether it's TDRs or whatever they want to be, whatever they want to call it. At the end of the day, you're manipulating the plat. And that affects what's around us all. And what we want to do is protect against an increase in density that's not desirable, it's not consistent. We all came from somewhere. Matt's been here forever. He never came from anywhere else. But I mean, a lot of us moved to a place for more space, for more rural, more of a pastoral environment that's a place that's nice to live. You know, and if we let these outside influences and pressures just keep packing it down, eventually people will succumb, their children will die, they'll inherit or their parents will die, the kids inherit the land, and inevitably they subdivide. And so that process has to hopefully have some protection, you know, from you guys. You're the gatekeepers, but from that over densification.
Sure, you do that.
Anybody else online?
No, ma'am.
Do you have anybody else?
Yelling Wayne's Guard, address is 858 South, 8700 East. We have a big lot, and it's right up to the property line. It's been there for generations. All of a sudden now, we've got another house that moves right in, and we thought nobody would ever move into this place. They bicycle around and they built a house, and they're within 70 feet of that big lot. You know, it's not gonna make any difference if I move that back 25 feet. Or if I leave it on the property line, the same smell, the same everything's gonna come onto these people's place. When if I move that back 25 feet, that's another 25 feet that I have to maintain. And 25 feet on just maybe 3 acres and some corrals for some horses or something isn't a big deal. But if I do that to everything I've got animals on, not only have I shrunk the amount of ground that I'm gonna be able to use, but it just created some for me to maintain, keep the noxious weeds, to keep everything down. You know, my neighbor right across the street from me, he put a corral right out to the road, had 3 horses there. Eventually he moved that corral, moved it to the back of his house. Said it was the worst thing he ever did. Constantly gave traffic jam on weekends. You couldn't keep the people away from them horses. You know, it's not that people don't want to be living next to them. It's just that I don't think we need the rules for it. I think we're starting to create something that we don't need.
Thank you, Kelly. Would you sign, please?
Hello, Christine Craven, 5063 Lakeview Drive in Eden. And I just want to piggyback off of the prior gentleman's comments about the 75-foot setback and their concerns about how they would maintain it. The rural character. They shouldn't have to feel obligated to know it when they've got other things that are more important and worthy than attention. But mainly I'm concerned about pesticides and herbicides, because that would be a quick fix. And we've got a lot of groundwater and springs here. And I think if you would try to impose that 75-foot setback, that would be the quick fix. And that would create a lot of problems downstream, literally speaking. Thank you. Anyone else? Do you have anyone else? Hello? Yes.
Greetings. My name's Kirk Langford. I live in Eden. And I just want to echo a little bit what you've kind of heard a little bit anyway. And some of you I met with, and we're looking at the tree and we're missing the forest. And you can't help the farmers by telling them what they need to do. If you want buffer zone, then the new people that subdivide around that farm need to have that setback, not the farmers. Farmers need to be able to drive on the roads. They need to be able to farm as they want. They need to have other ways to make money so they have a P&L that works. And I was out, unable to even get in the door here earlier. Example is, I think the minutia of detail was you can sell what you grow if you're selling your crops, right? Which is how it kind of works now. But there could be other things that could be sold, you know, the neighbor's jellies or somebody's bread or whatever the case may be. And so I'm pointing out a couple details here, but the bigger picture is, what are we doing micromanaging some of this stuff right now when you're trying to get the city up and running? You know, you're trying to fix problems that are not fire at your feet right now, my opinion. And we're never going to get through this if this is how it takes to go through line by line all these changes that you made. Many of us don't want, especially the farmers. So kind of got to decide what you want to do. You're going to micromanage the farmers, you're going to have less farming, that's for sure. Then you're going to have more homes. And I haven't met anybody that comes in this valley that's asking for more homes and less farms. You got to have a little bit of respect for working farms and not try to define them. Because I don't see a lot of working farmers sitting across from me here. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. But I do appreciate what you're doing. And I think you did a great job on the general plan. And I think we can get through this. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else? Do we have anyone else? No. Okay, I am going to close public comment on this item. And then we are going to skip the next item that is formerly FR3 proposed change to HR and move on to item H, which is FB3, and asked Mr. Carver if he would please read the summary for that.
Okay. Ogden Valley City is considering amendments to the zoning ordinance that will create standards that better align with the community's vision for how property should be used within the FV3 zone. Some proposed amendments include adding new use tables for permitted uses, replacing the existing conditional use list with a permitted use list. A new table added regulating signs, replacing the existing permitted signs and regulations list, and a new use table added regarding allowed accessory uses, as well as any special provisions relating to the citing of such uses, and the new text articulating additional special regulations and general operation standards for a variety of uses. So the section for conditional uses was deleted, and the following uses, following permitted use table was added to the section, including agritourism, bed and breakfast, small events, churches or similar religious worship buildings, educational institution signs, and parking lots accessory to uses permitted in this zone. And then this table replaced the long list of conditional uses. A new table was added for permitted signs and regulations that replaced descriptive text. And then a new section was added for accessory uses, defining a number of new accessory uses related to agricultural activities in the FV zone. And then a new section was added for special regulations or general operational standards, particularly on-site parking, on-site water management, agricultural produce sales, animal grazing and pasture, feeding operations, and animal unit rights per acre. Includes on-farm housing, on-farm worker housing, on-farm equipment repair and fabrication, aggregation, package, storing, and distribution of farm-produced goods, education and demonstration in renewable energy systems, corrals, stables, and animal shelters, custom meat cutting, dog breeding and kennels, parking and storage of large commercial vehicles, temporary construction use, family child care, and large group or family child care.
Okay, like to open this item up for public comment. So anyone who has something that they would like to comment on, please come forward.
Diane Nauman, 1919 East, 6925 North Liberty. I just want to comment on the animal unit restriction. You were allowing one animal unit per acre, I believe, is what it looked like, at least in the EV3 or AV3, sorry. That a horse is an animal unit, a cow is an animal unit. So generally, there's a lot of people around here who buy a few steers, feed them through the summer, butcher them in the fall. If you have 3 acres, I personally know quite a few people who had like 5 steers, raised them for other people, sold the meat. With this new land use animal unit restriction, that would not be allowed. So that needs to be looked at, given our valley and the number of cattle here. that are used for family food production and other animal sheep as well. Thank you.
Christine Brown, 1477 North, 7425 East Huntsville. And again, as he was scrolling through the list for the FB3, accessory dwelling units was also on that list to be included. Same as what I said before, let's let our valley kids raise the next generation here. Or 20 and 30-year-olds should be able to buy homes and build homes here and live here and raise their kids here. Thank you.
Anybody online? No, ma'am. We have anybody else?
Kind of hard to hear back there, so I apologize if I'm a little off topic. When it comes to these animals and what should be, I would like to make the recommendation that.
Will you remind me of your name?
A Pointsguard. My kids do 4-H and FFA and they have project animals and stuff like that. And I know a lot of other cities and places have exemptions for that sort of stuff, where it's a short-term project. We've got some pigs right now. We just picked them up and they'll be gone in the fall. Maybe we could look into, or I would like to recommend you guys look into something that allows exceptions to the amount of animals on a piece of property if it's being used for a kid's project similar to that. Thanks.
I got you. Thank you.
I think there was somebody else who also started to come forward when Mr. Wayne started. Is there someone else who'd like to come make any comment? If we don't have any additional comments, I'm going to close the public hearing on that area, and then I would like to move to the next item, which is the RE 15/20 zone. And I'd like to ask Mr. Carver if he'd please give us a summary of that.
All right, the primary elements changed in the residential estates zones RE 15 and RE 20 are a modification to the purpose and intent, and amendments to the land use tables specifying allowed uses in the zones, as well as special provisions required for said uses, and additional clarifying language, expanding specifications and definitions. The purpose and intent of the zone is clarified, adding language stating that the zone is to provide and protect residential development at a low density in a semi-agricultural or rural environment. It is also provided for certain rural amenities on larger minimum lots in conjunction with primary residential nature use of the zone. The current code lists both permitted and conditional uses. The proposal removes the conditional use category and places uses into a single permitted use table with special provisions. Uses that previously required a conditional use permit would now be permitted outright if they meet the listed standards. These changes should help reduce processing time and provide a clearer understanding of permitted uses. Chinchilla, frog, and beaver raising are removed as permitted uses. Bed and breakfast, condo rentals, lodging houses, and short-term rentals are removed as permitted uses. And there are special regulations added to private park uses, specifying that they're not open to the general public and to which no admission is made, but not including privately owned commercial or amusement businesses, and any associated parking areas shall be limited to a maximum of 4 vehicles. Rear setbacks for accessory buildings was modified to 1 foot. It's 10 feet where it's, let me look at the red line on this, and I apologize,
Five.
is it 5 feet? 10 feet. Yeah, I thought we moved it to 10 feet, where the accessory building rears on a side yard or adjacent corner lot. Those are all the changes.
10. I think he said. Is it 10 or 5?
10.
10.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm gonna open this up to public comment. If anybody who would like to come make a public comment about this particular zone, please step forward.
Don't go over the block. That's right. Jan Fulmer, Eden, Utah. I couldn't hear what the planner was saying in the back. May I please ask what he said about R15 and R20 for short-term rentals?
He said that our short-term rentals are removed as a permitted use in the RE 15 and 20 zone.
Thank you. I do think the planning group does have documentation that shows of all of the dwelling units, whether single family, condo, townhome, in Ogden Valley, approximately 31% are allowed to do short-term rentals as it stands. So it's something to think about for future licensing, future zoning, etc. I think that's all I'll say at the present time. Okay. All right. Thank you. Jan, when it's your address, what do you want me to do? So you just. So email. You post it down. Yeah.
Okay. Is anyone online? No, ma'am. Do we have anyone else who would like to come make a comment on this particular item? We have no more comments on this particular item. I'm going to close public hearing for this item. That does bring us to the end of our time period for public comments. And now.
You can go back, yeah, you can go back. So
We'll
thank
go-
you everyone for, you can stay, they'll now be considering that'll close the part of having the public participate. Thank you for coming and doing that.
Okay.
What happens there? They're gonna go through each item and talk about it, and make decisions. You can stay for that, yeah.
Does anybody need a 2-minute break? Thanks for coming, guys.
We're gonna start with the general manager. Five-minute break. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Well, Kate is facing volunteer. We are big, we're gonna do a little big, so let's get a pop to get a video. And your fish. Got it. Think you're this problem is getting worse. I think we added some, we had like two on each side, so about 60 seats total. And here, but this is her spoke. So she only wrote down on each one time. So I didn't develop it. Got over 100 years. I know there's no we had to do this whole resolution out of it. So just for meetings. Planning commission will deliberate. One sec.
All right, thank you very much. Okay.
Alright, good.
Okay, we're gonna go back now, and we're going to go through the deliberations on each item at a time. And in order to do that, I'm gonna open up the item, and then I'm going to rotate through and give everybody, a minute and a half, we want, in order to talk about your thoughts. And everybody gets a chance to give their thoughts and opinions, and then we'll see. At the end of our deliberations on each item, we can choose to as is, we can choose to make adjustments. We can choose to take it, but I think we need a little more time to think about what we had and decide what we want to do.
If we change anything.
Probably no.
If you could, I didn't know exactly what's happening right now, maybe if you could explain just the encapsulation form, what is it you all are doing, are you responding? That's.
I'm not letting him do that.
Okay, so each one of these have been noticed up for action. Before they can take action, you have to have a public hearing. We just did all the public hearings for each one of these items. They're now going to come back and consider each one of the items. And they can either approve it, move on to the city council, they can table it, they can approve it with amendments. So those are their options, and they're going to be making those decisions.
Right.
Okay. The first item is under C on our agenda, and that is the general plan. I'm gonna start with Jim. Let him start and then from this way.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear anything, there's some disagreements on, different opinions as definition PRs and so forth. But I didn't hear anything, and I think we should make any changes, to what we have right now. The one comment about, that being an interim general plan, recall I suggested we use that title. Because we do plan to go back and revisit the general plan with more comments.
Citizen stone. Yeah, I think we should go forward.
I feel the same.
We're able to address a few of the issues that were brought up. Let me get that to it. I think part of that, and only to say that, part of the reason the general plan had been moved forward without nitpicking is that without the general plan moving forward, we could start to address.
Sarah, were you talking to us?
Oh,
This is us.
okay. We couldn't pass anything else on there. So I'm feeling like we'll be able to go back to this and make it alone. So I'm good moving forward.
I agree with everything you said as well. I think this is an interim plan. I think it holds the vision and the core of what the original plan had. Modifications are minor. I appreciate the last comments on TDR. I think that in the future will look at closer, but I'm good moving forward.
I didn't hear any groundbreaking comments, for not moving it forward. The only thing I will say is, I do believe if you're remodeling your home and not, and this is really clarification for me, those permits are being approved, correct?
No,
They're not being approved by.
if they expand the footprint of the existing building, so if they make the home bigger.
But if I want
then they are not being approved. But
There's a real
if they want to finish a lease,
parents are.
Or, yes, that's being allowed, yes. but it's additions that increase the size of the structure.
So basement refinishes,
Basement refinishes are going through, you know.
that's the one clarification I wanted to make. Otherwise, I think it should go forward as is. We already have the grant to read the whole thing over the summer. And we can go through everything with a fine tooth comb then.
All right, I also wanted to make a comment on, I was thinking about Les's comments on TDRs. We removed the reference to TDRs and we left the term tool. It doesn't mean that it was an example of a tool. There are numerous tools that are there. We removed those references until we have a chance to look at TDRs and decide how those are going to be, how, if and how, I guess, they're going to be used. So I don't think, I think that hopefully that will address his concerns about TDRs, that is on the agenda to look at in more depth as we go forward, but trying to move things forward in light of getting through the moratorium. We will be reviewing the general plan. We do have that grant, so that is going to happen. And then the comments, commercial hubs, I think that's what happened in another zone, and with the revision of the general plan as well. So I also would say that I approve moving this one forward. Angela?
General, all those comments don't repeat, but just thank you to the public, for putting some thoughtful, commentary together for us for future use. And I'm now open to Fred's recommendation of the interim general plan if it doesn't create any legal complications.
Jim.
Yeah, I agree pretty much. I think that we have spent a lot of time on it, and it's kind of synced up with the new city as opposed to, the references to Weaver County and whatever. And I agree with Blake's comments about not to rush through, but we need to move it forward and then definitely come back and true it up.
Angela, was your question whether or not we can change the name of it to the term at the very end?
Do we need to do that? Do we need to do that?
You can always go back and amend it. I would put interim, I would just adopt it and understand you're coming back and you're gonna do a full.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
That we, move to forward the current draft of the general plan as written based on staff analysis, updates, and public comment, to the city council for adoption.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Were you going to add a gate when you were gonna readdress it?
I'm sorry, we're not, we have public comments over, sorry. Okay, the next item on the agenda is adoption of the zoning map. We started with Red, we'll start with Terry.
Well, there were kind of some big things right up. But I don't know that's sitting here. Right this second, I have the ability to address them. I would have to look at them further.
Okay. Carson?
Or I'd like to hear your thoughts on the removing of form base and the implications of changing that zone to BB3 for Hayden Crossing.
I haven't looked at it closely, to be honest with you. There's always a question, and so let me just ask a couple of questions about the form based. Was that a commercial based one? Tell me what the form based was specifically addressed.
Mixed use.
Mixed use, okay. So we're always going to do an analysis from a potential downzoning standpoint, from a takings standpoint. You can downzone And there's some broad components to that where it's like you have to basically take almost all of the value of the property that you're taking. There's kind of a slide look here. You always want to take that step very carefully. When people from a property rights standpoint feel like they have something and then they suddenly don't, that's always going to be controversial. But it's not necessarily illegal. There may be a different scenario with, what's going on, possibly with Mr. Dunleavy's property. There may be some vesting there, but I think generally speaking, you can do it. And you're leaving the residential use component there, and so it will probably save under a Taylor's analysis.
Yeah. That's good to know. And my other concern that was brought up was the fact that we may have possibly unintentionally added development. What's it called? Development rights. Was that density? By changing some of these zones. And so I'll just leave it at that. Those are some of my concerns. I'll let anyone speak.
I need a minute. Okay. I think that in the interest of the moratorium, there are other tools that are going to address some of the concerns. The master plan pieces, those are yet to come and will complement the other work that we're doing. We're moving through a piece at a time, but we have to look at the big picture of there are other things that will be put into that picture. I think that we're going to be able to find ways to address removing form-based zoning and replace it with something else reasonable as we work down the line. Maybe 83 for now, it may remain 83 in some areas, but there may be some areas that get addressed in a master plan development or in some other fashion as we work our way through. We just don't know what those are yet. We're trying to move along because we need maps in order to move forward as well. When we talked about talking about additional density, I think that with regard to the manufactured housing piece that we talked about, changing that to CBR1, I think I would like us to withdraw that piece as well as the other piece.
We can let Josh.
I'd not make that change.
So we go back to.
It would leave the way it is.
But it's currently manufactured.
Yep, no, I think we want to leave it the way it is for now, and then it can be addressed later. If the property owner wants to come request a rezoning or whatever, whatever happens. When we looked at the change in density that would occur, it was very substantial. And I think that in light of the general plan saying that we don't want to add density, the amount of density that potentially could add is a lot, as well as the other piece. Where's the other piece? Over in Old Town Eden. So I would recommend that we remove those proposals and leave that zoning the way it is and let it be addressed later through the process of some of the events to come and make a proposal for a change in zoning. The gravel zone, I think that I personally looked at the gravel zone over in Liberty. It is an incredibly small piece of land. It hasn't been used forever. There's no way that could ever be used as a gravel zone. I don't think you could build a house on that small piece of property that is there. We didn't hear from an owner of the property that they had any problem with that. We didn't hear from anybody at the gravel zone over in across from Middle Fork that they had any problem with us changing that zone. I don't, 83, the zoning is larger, so I think the added density is much more minimal. I would support keeping the I would support our decision not to move the gravel zone forward. And then the other map piece, the changing of a portion of FV3 to AV3. I didn't much. I drove around that area and took a look. I agree that most of that is, it looks agriculture to me, and I think that, we didn't hear any people object to changing the portion of the map that we wanted to do that. I would support continuing that. Brian? Yeah.
I could also add regarding that change from FV three to A3, we did receive comments from Bill White. In the monastery, and he's actually amended to the idea of expanding that change.
Right.
To include all of the monastery property.
Right, and so I guess we, on one hand, we should talk about whether or not we want to, part of the monastery is in FV3 and part of the monastery is in F5. I think we could talk about whether or not we want to add that piece of the FV3. Our proposal was FV3 to AV3. And we can talk about whether we want to make that piece of the monastery come in, but personally, I think it's too big a change to say we're going to change F5 to AV3 now. I think I would say I would prefer to leave that portion as is. And if he wanted to come in and apply for a zoning, for a zoning change, that process would be available just like it is to anybody else. And I don't, I'm open to your thoughts on whether or not we want to widen that area to include the FV3 area of the monastery and pull that into AV3. I believe his comments were part of the monastery is already AV3, part of the monastery is FV3, part is in F5. I believe he said that the area of the monastery that is being irrigated is FV3, but it's being irrigated and used as agricultural right now. So those are my comments. Angela.
Wait, I'll clarify for me though.
Yeah.
What was his final thing? He said
He wanted
all
us,
83?
he would like to have everything in the monastery moved to 83.
Okay, that's fine.
And my thought is I would not support moving the F5 area into 83.
Okay.
But the density is really different, FV3 to AV3. Angela.
Can we have the map pulled up on the screen?
That'd be helpful.
That would be. You want the current zoning or?
Proposed that we had.
Hey, Lisa, while he's doing that, something to think about is that we would pass this on to the city council, who would make the final decisions on this. And it seems that these are kind of fine tuning, really little fine tuning things that maybe require a little more study. Shane's comments, Ron's comments. If we pass that on to the city council, they can then, put the time into this fine tuning between now and the time that they have to.
And we don't have to make those decisions tonight. We can take a little more time to think about it as well before we decide to move forward or not to move forward.
Well, I just, to finish my comment, I think I would be in favor of moving it on because, we got a lot to get through. And again, these are kind of two small areas, two small issues.
We'd like to move the whole thing forward as is.
And let with, recommendation of the council, look at these couple areas that were have requested some tweaks and rather than pull it back and,
But I don't think we have to pull it back. We don't have to pull it back.
We can make
tweaks right here now.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I think I would like more time. If I gotta make a decision on it, I don't know that I'm prepared to do that tonight with the information we have. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, so, I think Lisa articulated about what we state because there's so many moving pieces and parts, so I wanna make sure we get this right. I appreciated the public comment and the comments sent in, and that has changed my mind on some things from when we had created this map. I think to be fair and create kind of a common baseline of where we're headed with our intention, with removal of some of the zones, that we do need to be sensitive that we're not upzoning. And so I agree that where we had thought about converting the manufactured home site to CBR. That's probably premature. Again, they can come and apply for that, but it is adding density unnecessarily. So I would recommend that we would revert to whatever that or maintain that zone, and we'll address adopting that zone currently, and if we remove it later, we remove it later. With regard to the other form-based pieces. What's that?
That was the same scenario. The Old Town Eden piece is the same scenario, isn't it?
Yes, so the Old Town, that's form-based, I don't know what that underlying zone was. Oh, that we would be reverting. No, the override is form-based.
No, there's a form-based in there.
Okay, we were suggesting become CB two.
Okay.
So again, we don't want to increase that density. What, do we know what that base density was prior to form-based?
It was AB3 prior to designation, so
Okay.
it does prior to designation, so.
So that would be the same condition as these others. And then the property owner recommendation was, there were some interesting options laid out, and I think those are practical. I'm not inclined to just throw down a commercial zone in place of form-based, because it might not be just right, and that might have been a whole other can of worms and complication and negative consequence. So I like the option of, let's revert back to the base zone, whether it be 83 or, there's that one minority that's a little different. And then work with the property owners to develop the master development overlay zones as a possible tool to overcome some of those kind of financial challenges, to bring the property in line with the actual vested interest and uses that have been approved. And hopefully that's a compromise that can be reached so that we can move forward with whatever comes next in place of form-based, but keeping the form-based doesn't make a whole lot of sense based on our general plan. We're going. Monastery. And then monastery,
So did you, I didn't quite understand, so did you suggest leaving the form base as it is?
No, but
Okay.
going for all of the properties being consistent, that they revert to their underlying prior.
AB3,
And then there's one other minority that was B3.
There's a little weird piece over in the.
Yeah, so we're not all 83, so
okay.
Brian had the record of the prior zoning was, and my suggestion is that we just create an even baseline there, reverting to the base zone, and then work with property owners, on developing these master development overlay zones as needed to their compliance on properties. And monastery. I don't have strong feelings in my head. Yeah, I don't think we want to be changing boundaries based on kind of side conversations with owners, especially having them not, been here to work through boundary lines. And so if we want to just proceed with what Tyson had prior recommendation for, I'm good with that. Okay. Jim.
I agree on the change that we are proposing to move from the manufactured homes to the CBI. One, I think we should pause that or rethink it. And then also to Shane's comments about a neighboring property that did not get rezoned that's very similar to, do we need to look at that?
Yeah, when I think we were talking about a neighboring property and Angela explain it. For Brian
It's
to
the
explain
Old
it.
Town.
Yes. So it made sense to me at the time where, when you look at the commercial node map in the general plan, it's very clearly commercial core. The intention is for that to become a commercial core. So I anticipate that down the road, that probably will be zoned commercial. But until that time, I think as we're starting this first phase of the map, let's just be consistent with kind of the zoning change underlying the form-based. And then we can come back and work with property owners and through the general plan process, update, make sure that that's done properly.
What was the original under that?
Do you know, Brian? Was that the
Over
Yeah, it was AB3 prior to
Yeah.
form base.
So that would revert to AB3 under that form based as well.
And then we're mindful of anything that has a current use will become non-conforming use. We are taking away, we're not.
Right,
Sorry.
You all do?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Terry, Fred had a chance, I think you spoke, Erin wanted to pass and come back to her.
Me, I wanted.
Oh, Erin, okay.
I agree with the whole RMH 1-6. I don't think that should go to CVR 1. I was never for changing form base, and I stand by that. I think they should remain the same. The monastery, I think we go forward with the way it currently is proposed. And if we can include more of that later because it makes more sense, then I think we should do that. What was the other one? That's pretty much it, the gravel stuff. I just think doing away with zones completely is opening a can of worms, so, but I have stood by them since the beginning, so.
Are we ready to see one make motion? Did everybody have?
I just have a question for Corbin again. Can we make a recommendation to the city council and say, also make sure to look out for any mistakes we made regarding like adding density? It seems like our desire is to not add density and we're not trying, but we may miss something. So
Yeah, you can absolutely give your general intention here, you're making a recommendation, but yeah, you can include that in your motion.
Okay. I have a motion. Unless you got it, okay.
I guess you can make the motion and then we still have room for discussion.
Okay.
If we had made that, you wanna make a motion?
I motion to move the zoning map forward to the city council with any changes that we made from form base going back to their original zone. And with a note that our intent is not to increase density. And so if by advice from Brian or legal that they find something increases density, that was not our intent.
And also the parcel.
Which parcel?
Manufacturer.
The manufacturer.
Yeah, the manufacturer zone doesn't
Remain the same.
but it remains the same.
That means what?
That it retains its current RNH -1 -6 zone.
Also.
Okay, and then I don't think we're ready.
In the forest.
And then
Second, the forest valley stays,
As proposed.
and the forest valley stays as proposed prior.
oh, and not move any of that to AB1? I'm sorry.
That's the proposed part, right?
Move forward as proposed.
Right.
Move forward.
Okay.
Should we start?
Can we do them separately?
No, we need to go through each one and then we need to do the map. So,
If someone wants to write it down, we'll do it.
okay, all right.
It's in my
Okay, Angela, do you want to give it a try?
Oh.
Is
Do we
he,
want to-
wait a minute, is he withdrawing his?
Yeah, he did. Do we want to walk through each item and separately? Because it is a lot of items. Okay. Form-based is going to, as proposed in our map, the form-based zone is going away and the properties in the form-based zone will revert to their original zones.
The zone, there is zoning.
Prior to them being form-based. That's item 1.
Yeah.
Item 2, the manufactured housing area that was proposed to be CDR1. We are removing that proposal and proposing that will remain whatever the name of that manufactured housing zone is. We're gonna leave it as it was, and that can be addressed later. Is that what I heard it say? Okay. Then, the area in Old Town Eden, that was form-based, so that's included in the first one.
Right.
Okay. The gravel zone. Are we proposing that go away and revert back to 83. Brian, can you tell us how much that increases density? 80, would you say it's 9 acres?
The
gravel zone
pit,
by Mill Inlet, the Stoker pit.
the Stoker pit,
I believe you said that was 9 acres, that would be 3 homes that could be built there.
yeah.
Where,
It's a little over.
okay, so that would be an increase. And that would be an increase in density by, it would allow 3 homes. The area over by Chris's, if they flattened all of that and built that, that would be an increase of over 100. If it was changed.
Yeah.
So 100 versus 3.
Under current conditions.
Under current, yes, under current conditions, so. So we need to talk about, do we want to remove that gravel zone and let that revert to 83 in that place? The other one, I don't think it's small. I don't know that anything could be built. I don't know what could be built over there. It's a non-conforming lot. It's very small.
It's not even the entirety of a parcel. There's a block within an existing parcel.
Yeah, it's really tiny. So now we need to decide what we want to do with gravel.
Can you take a quick poll on that?
Yeah.
Whether you up for using the gravel to taking it to the degree, or do you want to?
Well, maybe we just leave it as gravel.
Just leave it as a gravel. Is that what you're saying? Just leave it as gravel?
Sorry.
No, hasn't been used for gravel for a long time.
Okay,
Yeah, I would remove it.
I would too.
I would remove it.
What are we gonna change it to though?
And back to 83, and it would increase zoning.
You don't need to debate the next one here.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, what's your point?
Terry.
I say change it back to 83.
Remove that.
That's what we changed it to in the zoning then, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
We're just.
So leave it as we.
Leave the proposal down that as is.
I think does it as I would leave the change to 83 and remove the gravel.
Okay. Okay, I would remove the gravel pit and leave it, the proposed change to 83.
Same, because it's consistent with our moves on reverting, zones that no longer exist to their prior baseline, so.
I agree.
Okay,
So gravel pit, we would
the
change.
gravel pit, okay, we might write this down, gravel pit, removed. Revert, excuse me, to AV3, which was the original zone.
But we already did that, right? In this map.
Yes, that's on there, it's
Yeah,
on there.
we're not making any, we wouldn't be.
We're not changing that at all, leaving that as is, correct. Now, the area over by the monastery, that there's an area that's proposed to be moved from FV3 to become 83. And it does not include any of that monastery. That would, if we leave it as is, we're talking about the area that is proposed on our map change. And if more area wants to change into that zone, that would be something that would be addressed later through a requested zoning change. That's leaving it as is. Or do we want any changes?
Personally, leave the change. At V3 to AV3.
Same.
Sorry.
Same.
Okay, so that would be AV3 to, no, FV3 to AV3 remains same. Okay, are there any pieces of the zoning of the map that we have left out of this discussion? Brian, are there any other pieces in the map that we have left out of this discussion? We want to make sure we hit each item because there are numerous items.
No, I believe that part was all proposed changes from a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, should I try to make a motion? Please do.
Okay. I move that we forward a recommendation, for a proposed map, which includes removal of the gravel zone with, the parcels being reverted to AV3.
Well, it already says that, excuse me, doesn't it?
Yes, but that's not gonna reiterate
Yeah.
it, and she's just making a motion.
And reverting to AV3, which is the current zone, that the current proposed FV3 change to AV3 remain as it was prior proposed. That the parcel that is currently zoned, RMH 1-1-6 manufactured housing remain as is. Rather than,
So withdraw our proposal for the change.
yes, so do not rezone that. And that, we remove form-based zone and each of those parcels revert back to their private underlying zone, which include AV3 and SV3.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second.
Is there any additional discussion?
I would just like to convey to the council that, yeah, we would encourage, property owners to reach out, to us with recommendations for development agreements or zoning change, if that's all a possibility as we move forward. This is just our baseline map as we're starting.
And we will get to all of those items as we progress through all of the items on our list. Okay,
We got a
we
second?
have a motion, we had a second, we had a motion by Angela, we had a second by Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
I was 6. Aye, and you said nay?
Yes.
Okay, and 1 nay, okay. Definitions. Move to definitions.
I propose that we move definitions forward as.
Hang on, there was some.
Yeah, just explanation of the name and on the record.
My name for the record was specifically rezoning form based. Everything else I was okay.
Okay. Okay, definitions. It's based on, any comments based on any public input?
No.
No.
I do. I think there was inadvertent exclusion of both lodging and boarding houses. Those needs to remain, I believe.
We pull that up.
What were the two again, Angela?
Lodging houses and boarding houses.
I thought they replaced one.
Boarding house and sea lodging house.
Boarding house, yeah.
Lodging house has been reviewed, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
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 Okay, how are we going to?
Is there any other definition that would cover those?
I mean, I would just take the definition here for lodging house. And copy and paste it next to boarding house.
Can you read that for us real quick?
Yeah, a building designed for temporary lodging for compensation in which no provision is made for cooking in any individual guest room or suite. Unless otherwise more specifically provided in this land use code, a boarding house has between 1 and 15 guest rooms.
I do find copy it like you suggested.
Okay. Oh, you had comment?
Oh, about something else.
Okay, on definitions?
Do we have anything that would make this definition in place right now as a lodging?
I don't know, but I think that's, it's just a definition.
I know.
Yeah.
I think there might be more than still has.
It is allowed, it is an allowed use. I don't know if there are any active boarding houses,
Okay.
but it's an allowed use.
Okay.
We go to the definition for agricultural building / barn.
Okay.
Was it slash barn or were they two different things?
I
have it down as two
barn.
different things.
The comment was that, there's confusion between
The two.
those two definitions.
Listen,
I would say that Mr. Russo lives in a barn dominium.
A barn dominium.
Barn ADU.
No, it's not really. I mean,
I think there's.
I would say if you live
a
above,
barn dominium,
if you live above
There's any clarification.
livestock, then
So-
it's a barn dominium.
And I think he was specifically referring to the uses as described in the Agriculture Valley Code. Not under definitions.
okay, can you read the definitions?
Well, I know barn dominium are allowed because there's several words.
And definitions are always tricky because people are creative and they come up with uses that may not necessarily land cleanly within a definition all the time. In fact, in the previous year, the state legislature has been wrestling with how to provide flexibility for property owners to explore uses that may not be clearly defined within strict zoning definitions, but
I'm good with everything.
Okay, so Aaron, are you feeling we need to add barn dominium? Or that we
No, I
can
think-
just be cognizant of that and maybe when we're reviewing things the next time, we decide, do we wanna add a barn dominium as a definition?
Well, I think
Address our-
everything is.
we've defined a barn as an agricultural structure used for the housing of animals or the storage, handling, or maintenance of produce, agricultural vehicles and equipment. And actually, that change isn't really substantially different from the old definition.
Yeah.
Now, an agricultural accessory building is not. That one's tricky. That one's actually not in our definitions per se, but it is described as a use in the 83 zone.
I would say we leave it the way it is, and that's something we can come back to and.
Yeah,
look at
we'll
when we
need
do
3
the
months.
deep dive.
Okay. Angela, anything? Jim, any thoughts? Anybody else?
I'd make a motion that we pass the definitions on to city council.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
That includes the change under the boarding house.
Including that. Okay, 83, there were a lot of comments on 83, so let's dig into that with this one and be mindful of the fact that if we, we can, let's talk about this for 10 minutes. And 5 minutes?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
So we do the easier ones and then come back.
Okay. I don't need
have a lot of
Okay. Okay, so F. Let's go to RE 1520. I think that one was pretty darn easy. Let's go to RE 1520.
The main concern I heard with that was about short-term rentals, but I think it's just clarifying for the public that in the current legal short-term rentals will remain. That's how people feel like that might change with the removal of the ordinance, I guess, so.
Right, and I think that the comment that there are some areas that were in the development agreements, those allowed for short-term rentals, and that won't change either. Is that correct, Brian? Is that what you clarified for me? If the development agreements said they could be short-term rentals?
That's correct. If the master development agreement, or in some cases, it's even noted on the subdivision plat. But if those are in place, then then yes, they will supersede any zoning ordinance.
Okay, and
A lot of people are assuming that this is an HOA regulation, and so that's a lot of the language they've been using when communicating with us, saying our HOA allows it. It is not the HOA that allows it, it's the master development agreement for the subdivision that was created, and those are mostly in the Wolf Creek area designated as RE 15 and RE 20.
okay,
So those would stay with those developments for perpetuity regardless of who sells the property.
Exactly, whether we permit it in zoning or not, it will stay in perpetuity. However, if we deny it in zoning, we are creating confusion about what are their actual rights. And so, I mean, it comes down to, these areas are also mostly, they have that master planned development overlay zone on top of it, which is basically just saying, if it was a planned residential unit development or a master development agreement development, those rules apply and zoning doesn't necessarily apply. All of those areas, I can show you on the map, all of those areas.
What's the point of removing the STR?
because we decided we needed to get a handle on what was going on with STRs. We have STRs that are in master plan agreements. We have STRs that are legally operating with licenses. And there are a whole bunch of places being used as STRs that are not within those parameters. And we decided that this is a place saver, so that we can go back when we have more time to dig into STRs and decide. We talked about the fact that limiting STRs until we can revisit the whole big issue of STRs also helps us.
But this is
with
limiting some things that are already.
Hang on,
It's not limiting.
we're not,
No, I'm not saying limiting, I said it's not limiting some places where you're already left.
okay, can we talk one at a time? So let me finish and then I'll go right to you, okay? So when we talked before, we talked about not moving forward STRs in any zones until we have a chance to come back after the moratorium and address it in depth, and then decide how many we have. Jen Fulmer, I think, I don't know what she said, we have 31% of the homes here are in STR areas. We need to examine that and see. We also need to be mindful of the fact that we need housing for residents, and if it's more advantageous financial to add STRs, those are not homes that are available for rental for purchase or as second homes for people. And all we're doing is saying, not right now till we have a chance to dig into it deeper and understand it, and then we'll make a bigger decision. That's what we had talked about when we moved it forward. Go ahead. I don't remember. Go ahead. Now you want to talk, so please go ahead.
So specifically, a lot of these comments have to do with obviously the Wolf Creek area, which is under a master development agreement, so you're not really limiting anything over there anyway. So why remove it from those two zones, where those two zones are already under a master development agreement and pretty much built out? So you're not really limiting anything because it already exists. That's my.
Okay.
Can I come in?
That's Fred has his hand up, so he's gonna be next after.
Aaron, the way it seems to me is if we make some other area RE 15, 20, then that would apply to a new area. It really doesn't, in fact, anything that's going on in RE 15, 20.
But
don't get further.
That was something that you would have to consider if somebody is putting it for a reason. Like,
But that's
Right, they wanna change this zone to RE.
You're saying just wait.
So here's, this would be,
Hang on, Fred.
this would be the, while I was talking.
I know, I'm not.
This would be the criteria for a new area. For the existing area 1520s, they are what they are. We're not, this doesn't change that.
But the other thing too is it gives us teeth for people who are operating outside of legality.
Not really.
Yeah,
Because they don't have a license, if they're in an area that allows STR, not having a license is a compliance issue, not you're not allowed to have one issue. No, that's an enforcement issue, not you're not allowed to have one issue. Like if somebody in Trappers Ridge is operating an STR and they don't have a business license for it, you're not preventing them from using it that way because they're allowed to, they're just not they're not doing it the right way.
Okay.
That's all.
There.
I just think that there are enough people that aren't in Traverse Ridge that are operating STRs that you can come to them and say they're not allowed. It just gives you some teeth to implement enforcement, I think. And I agree that we'll come back to it. But my question is, so if these are allowed within a PRUD or a master plan development, we are free to go and require licenses for all those units, right?
You already do. The city or Weber County has already been requiring licensing for short-term rentals.
So we just need to monitor that.
The business license code that the city council has adopted also requires licenses for short-term rentals. So it's a matter of enforcement. Whether it's allowed in the zone or not doesn't change.
Right, I get that.
Yeah.
So, but is it the kind of thing that you could say, because you're allowing this in every unit in this community, say Traverse Ridge, you're allowing it in every dwelling, can you require every dwelling to have a license?
If they're acting as a short-term rental, yes.
But what if they're not?
Then they're not required to have a license.
Okay. But that's tough monitoring.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really tough. Okay.
Carson?
I see Aaron's point. It's only ultimately something that's going to, if something else gets rezoned, we just have it out of the way. For me, it's something that's going to bring it back and finally do the, yeah, you know.
I think the reason I think we need to look at it in more depth is there are additional factors that could come into play. We might say only a certain percentage of dwellings, and then if one gives up their license, another one can come in. If it's that, aside from the fact that if they're in a master plan development, they are allowed in the master plan development. But if we have others that are not in a master plan development and we want to later, upon greater thoughtfulness, say, okay, maybe we do want some places to be able to have STRs, but let's manage that by saying a percentage or only this many, or one has to give up its license before the other does its license. Just a minute, I'm gonna let somebody else talk before, okay, Angela.
I'm definitely a proponent of removing it from all zone currently, addressing it as in a valley-wide entity. And I think, as we strive for affordability, we all talk a lot about that, and it's important to us that we have a variety of housing types available. We've heard from the public, what the kids move into. STRs do take out housing stock away that entry level housing. And so I don't want to just willy-nilly leave it in anything, even if it's mostly built out. There are some lots that aren't, and so we've opened the door for those. And as Fred said, we don't know if somebody wants to rezone, it would automatically allow everything that's permitted in that zone. We can't just start picking apart and saying, yes, you can come to this zone, but you can't do an SDR, it would automatically be permitted. So I think I'm comfortable sticking with that's reasonable for now.
I agree, and I think that when we started this whole process a couple months ago, we made the decision to set aside SDRs and TDRs and back end. And so the folks that have existing ones, we're not taking that away. It's just put it on hold and come back and look at it later.
Okay, yes, Eric.
So the way I'm reading everybody talking about this is talking as STRs as a broader entity, which I get. But we are specifically talking about one zone. Like we're not talking about STR in F5 or AV3. We are talking about RE15 and RE20 specifically where they're currently allowed. Okay. Right? I mean, am I wrong in feeling that? I feel like there's a lot of when we want to remove all the SPR. If that's great, but we're specifically talking about this one zone. We're not talking about 83 and FD3. We're talking about this specific zone that's under a master development agreement where they're currently allowed.
Okay.
That's it.
Now, do you want to make a motion? Jim, right? Oh, no, I make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we pass RE 15 and 20 onto city council as is.
Maybe then before a motion, if I can add something.
Okay.
The conflict that I'm seeing in a lot of the written comments that we're receiving regarding this change in this zone is that it is not well understood the difference between denying this use in a zone and still allowing it under a master development agreement.
Right.
Could we add language to the land use table, for example, where it says short-term rentals are not allowed? Could we add language under the special provisions that says unless allowed within a master development agreement or PRUD?
As a current.
Or do you say evident exemption?
As of a certain date.
I
don't.
That would be tricky because, for example, this Trappers Ridge subdivision goes back to the early 2000s.
Or prior to this date. Prior to this date. How about
Okay,
that?
well, okay, yeah, so prior to the date of the city
Of
council
this,
adopts
yes.
it.
Well, any future master development agreement may allow it.
Well, they could, but that's going forward.
If we allow it in master development
Have to,
agreement, so we don't need a
But we
date.
haven't been through our master development piece yet,
Yeah.
right? So we don't wanna, right, we don't know what we're gonna say about that. So I think do we help you out with that, Brian? I also saw the Trappers Ridge comments that they're already included.
Right.
So if you say prior to any, unless they're included in, as you said, master plan development, whatever, prior to the date that allows short-term rentals prior to the date of this enactment of this ordinance.
We don't need that.
Is that?
I would agree with Fred that it's
Okay.
unnecessary because if a future master development agreement comes in and the planning commission and the city council both decide that short-term rentals are acceptable to whatever degree
Right.
negotiated within that agreement,
Agreed,
then you don't need a date in.
agreed. Okay, so, but we don't know, we might go forward and say there are other parameters where STRs might be utilized. We just haven't gotten there yet. So I think if Fred can make a motion, I believe what we're saying is we've made STRs a non-permitted use in every zone that we've put forward because we want to wait and examine STRs as a whole for all the reasons that we have been discussing, and I think that's, yeah. So Fred, can you make a motion?
I did make a motion, we're gonna withdraw,
Okay.
and I'll, just to clarify the language from Brian would be to add unless allowed under a master development agreement or
PRUD plan, yeah, PRUD planned residential unit development, which was what the code was before they created the master plan development.
PRUD.
PRUD is the.
PRUD.
So if we do that, do we need a second before discussion? I mean, we probably need.
Let me make clarify that motion then, because I withdraw the last one. So I motion that we pass RE 15/20, 15/20, and with the additional language, after we talk about STRs not being allowed, the additional language would be unless allowed under a master development agreement and or PRUD.
My second.
Okay, now, Robert Rule says there's more discussion. Does this encourage master plan developments to think that they should be including STRs?
Because they said all they want. It has to be approved.
Then you can decide that when they bring it.
Okay,
Yeah.
then,
Before that.
okay, Does anybody else have any discussion besides I did and I'm done? Hey, all in favor?
Nay,
Aye. Okay.
I'm a nay.
Okay.
Doesn't make no.
Okay. That's what. Okay. FV3. And then we'll say the. FV3.
Can I start?
Can you start? I betcha.
Brian, can we get clarification about one animal unit per acre? Because I don't think that's what it says.
That, I think that's what.
So typically. Oh,
Don't
well,
forget
let's-
animal-
let's-
don't forget
let's look at what it
animal
says, you know.
Like 2 goats is not the same as 1 cow.
That's correct. A goat is not an animal unit. A goat is generally
Percentage.
0.5 or 0.3 of an animal unit. And so you can have 3 goats in the same area, in the same area that you would have 1 cow or 1 horse, you know, larger animals. A cow or a horse is typically 1, llamas are 0.8. Goats might be 0.5, chickens are 0.2, or, you know, the smaller the animal, the more you can fit, right?
But does it say one unit?
And does that mean one or the other? Does that mean if you have a horse, you can't have a goat?
No, it means, you know, you assign a certain number of unit credits per acre. Like 1 unit per acre or 2 units per acre, and then the property owner can decide how they want to break that out.
Okay, so you could have 1 horse, 2 goats, 1 pig, 2 sheep, and you could have those allowed. I'm trying to understand,
Yes.
what does that mean in total?
Yes.
You could do.
You
okay.
can diversify
That-
your credits.
That was
the way
my
you want.
understanding, that you could, that it was, you weren't limited to just 1. That was, I mean, I think that was part of it, maybe, I don't know if it's a misunderstanding or not.
No, I think the concern is in the code, the way it is written. 1 animal unit is allowed per acre, so if you own 3 acres, you would be allowed 3 animal unit
Oh.
credits. That means you could have 3 horses or 3 cows or 6 llamas, you know, 6 goats or 4 llamas.
And is that the same graph that was in the Weaver County Code, or is that something new? I don't remember changing that. I don't remember changing that either, but, so, but I think I agree that is too much restriction on the owners of their property.
It doesn't sound very rural.
Yeah, I agree that that's too much restriction if that's what that means.
The other question was, is there an accommodation for kids in 4-H and FA?
Right, they brought that
up. FA.
So there you go.
That's qualified for a short-term project too.
So under this code, so I did write this part, so you can mind blast me for it.
Okay, we just wanna talk about it.
So it's 1 animal unit per acre. You can't, and this does not count for commercial use, this is not telling farmers how to operate, this is for people who are raising their own animal on their own property. And it does have cows and horses are both 1 animal unit per acre, which if you're actually feeding an animal on a property, that's a lot of stuff, like you can't feed more than 1 cow on an acre.
You can if you're feeding them hay.
Yeah.
You can if you're feeding them hay. I disagree. I think that there are plenty of people who have part of their land in pasture and they keep their animals off there and they feed them and they put them out in the pasture at intervals. And I think this is too restrictive.
Can we take a poll and just everyone
Yeah.
can say how many animal units they want per acre? I don't care that much, so if everyone wants to raise it to 2, then no.
I just wanna know where you know.
Can it be more of a general, like a
General.
animal welfare issue, you know, like it's not a, they're gonna eat it for steak, doesn't really matter, we've seen. I mean, we've seen, we've driven by some places where, yeah, but.
So what was Diane's like concern? I don't quite remember what she said. What was bothering her so much?
Hers was AOB, and that was regarding.
But it's kind of
Family
thing.
production, that's her.
Essentially, it's the same thing, both dog stuff.
Right.
So if we hash it out now, it's gonna go across. Brian is trying to make a comment.
That's right. I just wanted to bring up that the original Weaver County Code allowed for 2 animal units per 2 acres. So, you know, when Tyson modified it on our copy, it is the same thing. He just changed it to 1 animal unit per acre. The Weaver County Code does not have, you know, a neat little chart like what Tyson inserted. It just says, you know, it describes a group A animal and a group B animal, and it's basically broken down by size. You know, you've got cows, sheep, pigs in one side, and then chickens, rabbits, pigeons, stuff like that.
And I guess I think I'm gonna agree with Angela, excuse me, Brian, read that, excuse me.
No, just that, the Weaver County's code says that, no more than 6 combined sets may be kept on a lot or parcel that's less than 2 acres.
So if you go out and look at stocking rates and concerns about overgrazing, it fits in this criteria here with like 1 cow per acre, 1 horse per acre. Your point, Lisa, if you feed them hay, but they're still out grazing.
Not necessarily.
Well.
But they could.
Yeah, and I think, and the other issue really is pasture management, or manure management. If they have a good pasture manure management program, it's gonna work at the higher density, is from what I understand. So, and I understand people that are saying that, well, I've been doing this for 130 years, and you know, they don't want the restriction. My question is, if we pass this, is that gonna restrict them, or don't they have grandfather rights to do what they had to do?
Sounds like, good question. I mean, it sounds like they have been doing it, and nobody enforced it from the county standpoint, right? And so we're not altering that in any way. I mean, investing under animal use is a little different deal than I'd have to think that through a little bit.
If you were approved for a use as opposed to a building, a structure, you know, the structure is non-conforming but legal until the structure falls down.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
If it's a use, as soon as they stop that use for a specific period of time, sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 6 months. But if they stop that use for a specific period of time before restarting it, then they lose that right to continue that use.
So I still think, you know, as some of the people said in their comments, you know, if it's not, it applies to family use, not commercial use. I don't want to inhibit our families from being able to have family farm animals and do what they want to do for their own use, for pets, goats to milk, goats to eat, goats. If a kid wants to have a flock of goats and they want to put collars on them and put them out and do a small business to go out and put those goats out there to do weed management, I think that's exciting. I would like to see that happen. And I would prefer that we look at maybe what Angela is talking about and say, hey, maybe what we want to look at is if it becomes a hazardous area, something, you know, it somehow it becomes a problem.
A nuisance.
Yeah. And we
Well,
have
that's subjective.
You know,
Yeah.
those are concerns for the setbacks,
I know,
well,
Let's finish first, and then I think it applies, but let's
Just
finish.
be very clear, this is specifically about home food production. So this is the type of thing you might see regulating someone's backyard chickens, for example, right? There is an explicit exception for like commercial use. So if someone's selling, if they're raising beef to sell, this does not apply to them.
Right.
And there are protections that talk about essentially nuisance and contributing that. Smell and poop go on your neighbor's property.
Okay, but maybe the problem is that horses aren't typically raised for consumption, but they're maybe being folded into this, maybe that's where the apples are rising.
Well, the family that has, you know, chickens and goats and a horse, and they are raising cat for their own food or, you know, whatever they're doing, but they exceed that. I think if we look at, I just don't wanna inhibit our families from their family agricultural use.
Okay, so what do you propose we change? so that it
Give me
accommodates
some
them?
ideas for your language for what you're talking about.
Like Aaron said, this is subjective, so.
It is subjective.
Like USDA, something that we can fall back on, or USU has some guidelines, perhaps we can dig into. I think we were looking there though, and couldn't find any conclusive. I don't know.
So do we,
So the one farmer that his family's been doing for over 100 years.
Yeah.
Their grandfather had, right?
Well,
Yeah,
not
well,
as far as building.
it's not sure.
Yeah, as long as they continue to do it, but if they ever stop it, then they would go away, they'd have to conform to the new code.
So we're not penalizing the existing farmers.
No, we're not talking about farmers right now, we're talking about people who own like an acre. And wanna raise family food,
Who owns cows and chickens and?
but that's for like commercial, this is.
No.
Not necessarily.
No.
We are penalizing, what if they wanna sell their land and they want, and the person that wants to buy it wants to say that it doesn't, that the use doesn't carry forward, I don't think.
The use can carry forward as long as the change with the land, as long as it doesn't stop. For more than whatever the prescribed amount of time is.
a year?
So if somebody
So,
new
if
bought
I
the
have two
land,
horses on my acre. Right, currently, cause that's what it was before, I think one horse per half acre.
Actually, it was
One
four
horse.
horses, there was one, it was 4 horses per acre.
Okay.
It was in summer, but.
yeah, that's understated.
I know, so I wonder if we take
If
animals.
I sell my property and they don't have horses,
And it
they live there for 2 years, they cannot resell that horse property, even though they may have bought it as horse property.
Correct.
Correct.
And if it's not,
I don't want us to do that. If our goal in the general plan is to promote agricultural use, I don't want to take that away.
We did that, but now how do we address it? How do we address it?
Are there, in terms of the nuisance or hazards, we have the stuff we're working on with waterways and sensitive land overlays and those kind of things. Is there something there with erosion or, what are the concerns with higher densities of animals?
Those are, they're not really addressed in our sensitive land overlay, because it's to talk about the agencies.
We started committee, we have an ad committee that is just coming together that, but do we, how much time do we have to allow them to do that? Can we, to come together and give us.
Yeah, we can go back to this, right? I mean, it's, what if we ask what it was, how it existed, and then, let the Ag Committee work on what they're working on and make changes in the future.
I've been hearing about potential ag units for years.
But they're going to meet now the first time, the first week of April. So they are, okay, so are you proposing putting this language back to what it was in Weaver County? And reading it that way?
What we did, it was at V3 was to add in the ag stuff, right?
We did.
That was the change we made
Well,
from V3, wasn't it?
There was some ag stuff in there already.
It did have. So we're specifically talking about home food production.
Yeah.
And it had the same provision, they did have that already with Weaver County's code.
I just think we all need to read this because it's really clear. It's not gonna affect the people that were complaining about it. I mean, it's really spelled out. I just feel like maybe they didn't read it really clearly. It's only about, like you said, family food production. And it says the animal unit limits apply only to family food production, accessory to a residential use, and should not be used to regulate agricultural operations or livestock kept on agricultural parcels. So the people that I think we were hearing from are those people that it's not affecting. This is only like, we had 2 cows for a while to raise for our own beef. I think isn't that where you're addressing?
Right.
Right.
I think the issue was that if you're a family of 7, which isn't uncommon here, and you wanna raise 2 cows on your 1 acre property for your own food production, that's currently not allowed the way it's written.
Then you can't have a goat, and you can't have a horse, and you can't have a chicken.
But would that not be considered short term?
Why
If you
can you not
if
have
get
a goat?
cow, you get a steer at the beginning of I don't know, April, I'm not a farmer. And then you kill it in October to eat tasty steak, that's not short term.
No, I mean, you can put in whatever you want. In my experience dealing with these types of issues, it's always nuisance, and we actually have a lot of these come up. Roosters that crow, or somebody that decides that they're going to put more animals in what is really a residential area, and then everybody's complaining about the smell and different types of things. And so, in my experience, it's better to have a clear mind, because then right? People may not like it, but pick a number and then go with it.
Right.
Rather than going, one person's nuisance is another person's, food storage.
Right.
I don't know.
So it allows us a way to enforce.
Exactly.
Okay.
Pick a number.
So I have a question, but this, Tyson, you're probably more up to speed on this, but this ag committee that apparently has just been formed, and should they weigh in on this? Are they a tool or a resource?
They will be a tool, but that means we would have to hold this up. But there are other things that can go forward. I mean,
Just remember, this is not a permanent, as far as, what you're trying to deal with tonight, this is not permanent. You can come back and change this at any time, very simply. And so it's like, even if you restricted it for a period of time and came back 3 months from now, it's not like it's like, this is a very easy fix.
okay. And are we able to come back and fix this? Can we put a time limit and say to be revisited? Okay, we want to get to the end of the moratorium. Can we say we'll come back and revisit it? Can we put a date?
No, just pick a number and move it forward.
Can we do that, or does it have to be, once we pass the moratorium to revisit things, are we going to have to wait till we go through all the general plan and all of those things?
No, you can come in and reconsider. Once your zoning's in place, you can come back in, and you're gonna be tweaking the zoning all the time.
Okay, can we choose to do that, or does somebody have to tell us that that's something we can do?
No, it's normally done, normally the agenda is controlled by the planner. And so if there's an issue that comes up, the planner comes in, and it's more because he's the one interfacing with the public. It's like, there's some issues here. We're gonna make a proposal, and we're gonna bring this in front of the planning commission and city council.
But I can also speak with you and see if there are issues that you want to
You want
address.
to put on
we
the
can bring that to you.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the agricultural committee reviews the things that we've done, and they come to us and say, or maybe they go to Brian, I don't know. These are some things that I think we need to tweak. Brian, and then Brian.
Yes.
So that agricultural committee would be able to set that kind of.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be necessarily a
Absolutely.
resident.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
What
Pick a number.
Double the number right now.
Okay, that's double the number.
Double hours.
Double the number for now, and then.
2 animal acres per, 2 animal units per acre.
Units.
Okay. 2 animal units per acre.
Okay.
2 animal units per acre. Yeah.
And remember, ADUs was also brought up as an issue with this and that. Right.
We didn't get fixated on this, so.
Yeah, let's finish this one and then we'll move to ADUs.
Okay.
Is that okay?
I thought it was finished.
Okay, we're gonna double the units, and then with the knowledge that we can come back and revisit it. We have agreed.
So now can we?
What else?
Or have a chance to if anyone else have anything to say about this, we only talk.
We've only talked about this item, there are other items.
If everyone has a chance to say their piece.
Did we put an exemption in for the 4-H or similar events where they can exceed the capacity? I think we.
I think there should be something.
That's-
I think there should be two.
Right,
For 4-H FFA or.
The only thing that I would say there is that it all gets down to what is a nuisance. I would just tell you, pick a number.
We doubled everything actually.
Yeah, it's like you're.
Pigs are the same as, how much is a pig, like 0.5?
So you're saying we don't need to single out a particular activity?
No,
It should
because
be covered in our numbers.
exactly. If you doubled it, you should be good. I doubt there's gonna be people that are going to exceed those numbers within FHA.
So 0.4, you have.
You're gonna be just fine.
And the other thing too, is I just feel within this zone, there are very few 1 acre lots that are gonna be doing this. there just aren't that many 1 acre lots in this area. And I think most people that are pursuing, like you're saying, raising, having cows and their goats, most of them are living on an acre. I don't know, I could be wrong in that, but I.
The ADUs were an issue and, so ADUs are on our list to address separately. It's a whole separate thing that we will address, and as soon as we have a chance to address that, the ADUs, that will fit into ADUs everywhere, because ADUs are allowed, and we've got Brian and Corbin.
I was just gonna say, this is the state has come in and you're going to be required to do ADUs in October. I wouldn't worry about it because it's,
Detached or attached?
we all catch, both.
We already have to have.
So- You just don't have to have authority for this, so I would move forward in this, and we're gonna make those changes when we're required to do so.
Right.
Good. We have a bunch stop, I think.
We didn't, because we were anticipating to be here for a long time.
So they only select if we do.
We didn't have a hard stop time, I believe the discussion was, oh my God, we might be here till midnight. So, but we can go as far as midnight. What else? Is there anything else we want to talk about with Forest Valley 3?
No, I'm ready. I'll make a motion.
No, that's right.
Okay, so, it was really helpful that Brian put that comparative table together with AV3, FV3 and the analysis, and there was just some inconsistencies with some standards between the two in a few areas that I thought we might just clean up, I didn't have them be the same. So one was regarding cannabis production, and there's in FV3, it's just permitted, and in AV3, there's some conditional restrictions. So I would just think we would want to be consistent and have the same conditions across both zones.
I would agree.
I agree. And then the same went with dog breeding kennels. In FV3, it was just strictly permitted, but in AV3, again, just a little bit slightly different language and requirements that I think we should carry over to FV3. And then, let's see. Also had, there's something about illuminated signs, and it talks about floodlights, and I think we want to remove that and instead include something about, reminder adhering to dark sky compliant and sign lighting as well. And then for the private park, there's been comment about concerns of dust and noise with private parks. If someone puts in an ATV track or something next to a house, that could be disruptive. So adding special requirements for lighting, noise, dust.
And non-motorized use.
Yeah, where did we talk about that? And we were talking
about,
noise decibels for
I don't remember, but I do think we need to add in something about, cannot be used. Motorized vehicles cannot be used in private parks. So that would be ATVs.
I think, there were some parameters that we had talked about, lights, and having it was
50 decibel.
light 50 decibel, yes, and we talked about lights had to be off by not 9 o'clock.
I think it's a 10.
Okay, maybe 10 o'clock, and off earlier if they weren't if it wasn't being used for something.
That's the property of Mr. Use.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those were a couple of things, and then. Yeah, I think that's all I had on that.
Did we include that though? Did we include the dust and motor vehicles? When we talked about it, because it was
Not this zone, because this was
I
our
know.
issue.
So in the interest of time, let's talk about the things that do we want, in the interest of time, if we're gonna get to AV3, that's gonna take a bit too. Would anybody support that we talk about these things and then go back in our groups and try to fix it and then bring it back to move it forward? That we only have to have a 24-hour notice to come back and say, okay, fix the things we are concerned about, because it sounds like a little research may need to be done with regard to dust and noise and things like that, or you guys wanna stay and hash it out, cause we still need to talk about 83.
But it was a conditional use, and then that's.
Then we have to come up with a condition before we're ready to move forward. We make it a conditional use.
And that way you would fix it tonight without losing control of it.
What's that?
Yeah, and using it, moving it conditional use would work very well because then you can put conditions on it and that way you could move it forward.
And we don't have to be specific now about those
No,
conditions.
you could just move it as a conditional
Okay.
use. Yeah, that works.
Okay.
All right, I like that. I like that.
Okay, that.
Yep.
So we wanna change that to a conditional use? Brian, you getting this?
Yep.
Thank you.
I don't know who was working on that, so they're good.
Was it you? Or did you do this? It was down three.
Exactly three, I think
I think
Tyson
Tyson
and
me and
And me.
Fred and Fred now.
Yeah, so with those like 3 or 4 things I mentioned, are you guys?
yeah, I'm fine with that.
And what it would be, I first mentioned about what would be the
Oh,
action
just
of those.
consistent language between AB3, FB3 regarding additional restrictions or special requirements for cannabis production, dog breeding. Private parks and private park
And private be done in
turn
the
around. To conditional use.
Making it consistent with AB3, is that what you're saying?
Not private.
And Brian's gonna do that, and which one would be the consistent,
I just gave you the 83.
no, I mean, which AB3 or AB3 consistent with FB3 or FB3 consistent with AB?
So.
And consistent with AB.
Yeah.
And yeah.
FB3, so change FB3 to be consistent with how those things are worded in AB3. Yeah. I'm good with
AB3
that.
has more descriptive restrictions.
I'm good with that. Let's do it.
Can do it.
I can make a motion.
I'm looking at.
So yeah, based on the public comments and the staff analysis and discussions, I move that we forward a recommendation to the city council to adopt the FB3 zone as drafted with the following changes. Bring in language from the AB3 draft to be compatible with FB3 for cannabis production, for dog breeding and kennels, and to move the private park, private playground, private recreation to conditional use.
And double the animal units, right?
And double it.
Double the animal units per acre.
I will second that motion.
That's all in favor.
Aye.
Okay. 83.
Fine.
So similar animal unit thing with the normally. Yep, I agree with that.
Same.
I agree, I think the setback of structures should be on the adjacent properties versus.
I agree.
In agricultural facilities.
Well, that would be for sure, right? I mean, anything that exists now that is less than 25 feet from the property
Right.
boundary would stay.
Yeah, so it's new.
It's just a new property,
But the new property would have to build farther away
25 feet.
to make sure they give that buffer to allow them.
Right, and we needed to fix that language that says not less than 25 feet.
Yeah.
But also, could we add in there that these don't apply to buildings and accessory buildings that are already in place? I think that was a misunderstanding.
But that's the norm.
Can we
That's
go
the.
through everyone and have one set of beats?
Yeah, let's go around. There you were talking right now. Okay.
I'm wondering if we need to include wording that says that buildings, structures that are already in place are not affected by the new ordinance.
Brian,
Anything
you
else to
have
say about
Wait.
the zone?
Oh, the whole zone?
Yeah, could you just like all your opinions, so I, that's how I would prefer to do it.
Well, I think there was some good comments brought up by Les Beera about the irrigation systems. They're beyond my understanding, but I think there was enough there that, do we need to review that again?
I think we took,
And
we
clarify
got
it.
the. Right, sorry.
definitely a lot of talk about having the horse owners, the old time owners having the setbacks and the family history, and I totally agree with them. But I think, again, that was that misunderstanding. I think that's it. I mean, it's quite
existing uses, but perhaps there's clarifying language that could be added to state to just state that, you know, this doesn't require anyone to move an existing structure or change it.
Well, I think it would be comforting to read, you know, if you were them. I think that's the only thing I was really worried about.
I'm not sure if that necessarily belongs in the code, but maybe there's some education with fire or something to the side.
Okay, so why would the code be a good place to put it? Is it just kind of a general understanding?
One.
And maybe the staff analyses when you put those out in your future.
Well, it's essentially the law, like the Constitution doesn't explain itself, it just says what it is.
I know, but I have that good interface with our citizens, and I'm wondering how we can accomplish that so that we don't have those feelings rising up that they aren't being understood and that they're, you know, the feel they're being micromanaged by ordinance. You know, it's just kind of a cruddy feeling, and if we could avoid it, that'd be great. I think we're done, yeah.
Okay, so with the setback thing, I'm fine modifying the setbacks. It's not something, I totally understand what all those people were saying. However, just keep in mind, let's just say I buy a new parcel, someone already has their swimming pool and whatever right next to that parcel, and I decide, and we take away setbacks. And as a farmer, I could have all my cows and whatever pooping and in a confined space right next to that person's property line who was already there. So there is precedent for the existing farmers, but there's also new farmers who will put things next to people's homes. And just consider that. I'm fine eliminating all these setbacks personally, but just know that there's precedent for the farmers, but there's also precedent for the existing homeowners, and then new farms move in and they want to be able to put their cows right on the property line or pigs or whatever. And what we're saying is agriculture first, even if we get rid of setbacks entirely, we're saying agriculture first. It doesn't matter if you have your residential home there. We say that agriculture can have their animals right next to the population. So just keep that in mind. I'm personally fine with that, but it's not just about when I say it's not just about the farmers, I mean it's not just about the farmer who's been there 100 years. It's also about the new family that has a house and the farm moves in next door. There's a little confusion about Les's irrigation thing. So I have my original draft of irrigation language there that we decided to remove to make it more simple, and we added a more simple paragraph. So he saw probably a fairly well written irrigation protection that we decided to mix, but that was not part of the original code, but that was on the last. Someone mentioned landscaping around homes. I'm not worried about that. And then the other good point that someone, I think Diana, Norman, brought up about horses can also be commercial use. Yeah. So I need to look at that closer, or maybe Brian can.
That's true.
Making sure that horses aren't just listed as a recreation tool, but they are also a genuine commercial agriculture use.
Equestrian,
something else that was non-limited.
sorry, equestrian training and stable facilities are allowed.
Yeah.
They are
But
permitted.
not breeding, but not breeding. That's.
Does that fit within that? Do we just need to clarify that now?
We only have dog breeding, but that was from Weber County. Weber County doesn't have specific language on horse breeding, you know. I would also add, just stepping back to the setbacks on agricultural operations like a corral. Weber County has a 25-foot setback. We didn't change that when we copied the code.
It goes back and forth between the 75 and 25. Was 75 away from
So 25 away from the property line, 75 away from an existing home.
Yeah.
Existing is
the key word in there.
Yeah.
So the new farmer could.
A new farmer couldn't So let's just say there's an existing home there, I buy the 25-acre field right next to it.
Right.
That new farmer would have to choose to put their corral not on the fence line next to that house.
On it, they could put
Where
on
it's currently.
Okay.
And so we would be restricting that farmer on where they put their corral on that property with those setbacks.
But could that be more of a good neighbor thing too?
Thank you so much for your wonderful kindness.
I mean, I want to be a good neighbor, so I don't think I'm gonna put my pigsty next to their pool, but you know, we have to regulate that.
We had the pigs in Midway that were miserable.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you can't rely on good neighbors. That's why we
You
have.
laugh really hard.
And I guess lastly, since this is public record, I really care truly about farmers. I spent a lot of time going through this, going trying to make this good for farmers. I may have failed. However, if we don't say something in this code, then someone in the future might get something that is more restrictive. And so the reason some of these things are in there because they're already part of what we're going to, but some of them are also saying we're carving out a space for farmers, and if you don't carve out a space and specifically allow things and give parameters for that, then future planners may just say we don't like pigs, maybe I can cut off some implementation. So that's why yeah, that's my final one.
No, it's great, those are good places.
It's your turn now. I'll try to not, if you and I have a problem.
I'm just gonna eat with my notebook. So my question was about the breeding, can we just put it in there, like, in that same area with corrals and blah, 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 can you just add breeding?
Under equestrian training, stapling. Could add that.
I don't think houses with pastures need to necessarily have specific landscaping requirements, I mean, that's, whatever. ADUs has already been addressed, I think the irrigation stuff that you put in that we took out, we said we would come back to when we did the big review, so I don't think that's a huge issue right now. Lee Schutzman. I'm gonna get back to him about the SDR, I meant the cable thing, but I think that can also wait. The big things here, from what I heard from everybody, is obviously farmers being concerned about being grandfathered. And then setback. The 75 feet, is that on all sides? Front, back, end, both sides? Like if you have a house, like you buy 6 acres, 25 acres, whatever, is it 75 feet, 75 feet, 75 feet?
So the 75 feet
is from
language is from Tyson's Editions.
Right, so that's my.
But it's from a building or?
It's from your neighbor, a neighboring home, right? And that's specifically for an animal feeding operation, not for animals on pasture, as I recall. So like you can have your cows on the field, but
Right,
if
so
you
my
want
house
a
is
concentrated feeding.
for my property line.
The place where you feed them can't be. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is, so like, sorry.
I think.
You might have 100 acres and you have your cows grazing all summer long, but in the winter time to feed them, you often confine them to a small area to make it much easier. So there's much higher concentration of manure and animal stuff, right, in that area. So the 75 feet, I believe, is specifically about that.
Yeah, that's true. It's if you have a temporary concentrated seasonal feeding, even then you're not allowed to have more than 25 head per acre.
Units.
So you can have up to 25 animals per acre in one of these seasonable times. And they need to be no closer than 75 feet from a dwelling or public or semi-public building.
Okay, this goes back to the double fencing that right?
Yeah.
That was a question about, you know, what can they do with that 75 feet? Like if we have a perimeter fence, now you have to have another fence. Keeping them farther away from your neighbor. I think
And that's a
That
big
is
thing.
the concern is that, yes, so again, existing farmers don't have to worry about that. But if you were going to design a new feeding area. And you had a limited, if your farm made it so you had to put it as close to your neighbor as possible, you would have that in your strip.
Is unusable.
Yeah, and that really would be unusable, it would be an awkward space.
How can we have workaround so that, because that to me seems really inefficient for land to have a strip that you have to keep weeds up and mow and
Well, it's not just one strip, it would be 75 feet
Whatever.
on the perimeter of your.
Well, depending on the size of your property, depending on the size of your property, but we're talking about feeding, are we talking about when there's concentrated feeding? Like, can you feed them 100 feet away, but they can still walk over to the fence?
That's true.
That's not a question.
To me, that's what makes more sense. The feeding area is in the middle of the pasture, but so they stand in the middle of the pasture to eat, but they can move all over the place. I think it is absurd to think that somebody's gonna have to double fence their property and maintain the property in between there. I just think that's absurd.
Is there a reason it can't be 25 feet?
Well, I think 25 feet is almost worse.
So Corbin, what kind of solution?
What is it
are you
useful
seeing?
for? Because you're still creating a strip that's just gonna be
Yeah.
a mess. Yeah.
So I think we were talking about two things with the setbacks, right? One was sort of the barns and facilities.
Right.
Yeah, to the front. I think that does create an awkward dead zone. So I'd be inclined to just treat that as a typical accessory building with a 1 foot setback, or whatever that would be. But I do think that the 75 foot for the specifically for concentrated feeding, they can move around and they can use the full pasture. But I think, and it's from an existing dwelling unit, so it's sort of, again, but no surprise, right? Like they were there, and it goes for the farmers now too, like they've got their barn here, they don't have to move it, but anybody moving in knows what they're working with. And so I think, that we are, in addition to wanting to facilitate ease in all of the operations and people living, we can also look to reducing conflict. It's gonna be a lot more solid in terms of this persisting over the duration and not completely get into agriculture down the road, right? Right, but if we start to create a lot of conflict and problems between neighbors, then I think that's gonna be worse for us in the long run.
We're always gonna have the guy who moves from the city, who builds a house by his farm and then complains about the farm smells.
Right, but I think 25
I lived in Cooper and they didn't then.
So and that is, just for that one piece, but I think in terms of structure, just to find it closer to property line and.
Okay, well, that was my piece, that was just my question, so. Moving on to the next person.
I agree, we addressed the question from the SCRs.
Does Jim have anything?
I thought we were going this way, okay. I thought we were moving this way.
At least it's taking a turn.
So I was gonna take the turn.
Oh, sorry.
I have to wait.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Outdoor recreation club activities, the horse riding. So I agree with the comment, when we talked about this, we were thinking, bow and arrow shooting is one thing, or mounted shooting, right, is a thing. And that's not safe, I don't think, if you're on a small enough parcel. But I think we need to think about that. There are a lot of recreational activities that people do on their private property. Whether it's having the 4-H group is gathering in somebody's house and whatever activities they're doing.
So which thing is specifically right now?
I think we said horse riding, outdoor recreational club activities. It's below, it says N.
They were not permitted under Weaver County, and so they're not permitted in the 83 zone.
Yeah, I think.
There is like horse jumping and other equestrian.
That we have turf horse jumping course, and we changed that to permitted. We said horse racing and training track, cutter racing, including indoor concessions as an accessory use. That's different. I think that's a bigger production. And we said that was non-permitted. But the outdoor recreation club activities, I think this isn't just horses, right? It says horse riding is one of them, and that was the comment we got about the horses. And I agree, I think that that is unreasonably limiting horses. Now, bow and arrow shooting, if somebody wanted to have a bow and arrow little gathering with the 4-H kids or the scouts, and they wanted to come have a bow and arrow target shooting, I think I don't have a problem with that. Snowmobiling, we talked about noise, so do we wanna make this a conditional use? Kind of like you did with the other one, and then put some conditions in, because snowmobiling, like ATV riding, is loud, it can be obnoxious depending on the size.
Well, can you do something with acreage? It's only allowed.
Well, we can put a conditional use, as Corbin suggested earlier, but if we put it as a conditional use and then we feed the conditions in, or do you guys think we need to be specified, or do you wanna leave it not? I think we're overly limiting some activities that, and for me, the equestrian activities are huge. Making sure, why would we limit a group of people that wanna get together and shoot bows and arrows? I mean, people do turkey shoots, where they get out and they do a target shooting thing for a holiday or whatever. And yes, there are conditions, you don't want people shooting guns where it's not safe, but to me, maybe those are conditions rather than just totally non-permitted. So that's my comment on that one. The irrigation piece. Les made a good point. I would wonder if we wanna take Tyson's irrigation information and put it back in. And address it later if we need to, I don't know. Do we want that out or in? I think that's up for discussion. We definitely need to address the irrigation, and I think the sooner we do that is better than later that we help with that. But I'm gonna finish going through my things, if that's what Tyson wanted me to do. Horses for profit in Greenbelt. We talked about horse breeding, so stabling and training, that probably would cover that kind of use. The person who takes horses in, trains them for sale, or buys horses, trains them and then sell them. So I think if we added horse breeding, maybe we've covered all of those things. The setbacks, Anya Felson said that the previous setback was 20 and now we have it on 25 to 25. If it was 20 and that's preferable, for the county, I don't care if we move it to 20. Minimum landscape, he doesn't agree with the minimum landscape regulations. We're gonna address landscaping in other areas, but I agree, it doesn't make sense to say you have to landscape your pastures or around your pastures or anything like that.
Well, she was talking about homes.
Homes.
Yeah.
Around homes.
Yeah. And we're going to get to some of those things in design standards anyway, so I think we're going to address those. Lee's comment for the red line, I think it was a discrepancy between the summary and the document. And I think the document was correct and the summary is where the error was. And so do you guys agree with that? Okay, so I can address that. That's all for me.
Okay. In addition, so let me restate the things I agreed upon there. There was a stable for horses.
Yes.
And it said it must be an accessory to a primary use, and then there's a question of why can't that be a primary use?
Fair enough.
I was thinking that too.
Sure.
So the horses should be considered an agricultural use, which is a primary use.
I agree.
Very good.
So that just needs to change in the description of under stable for horses.
Mhm.
Stable.
Brian, are you there?
Yeah,
take a look at-
provided use for main accessory and primary use, we'll just strike. Strike, so horses may be kept for personal use or limited boarding. Provided the parcel complies with the following standards.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be an accessory.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
And then you're gonna fix the short-term rentals, make sure that's a no, right, in the description or whatever. And.
Yeah, it's a no in the red line, it was not a no in the.
Right, just as you pass it on to.
Yeah, make sure it's good, I'm sorry.
And then with regarding the irrigation, I think we have to decide that with Corbin, and I think for now, I'm comfortable forwarding it as it's written and then revisiting it still, but I don't, and then in terms of, additional comments we may get from the ag committee, again, I think it's great that they're forming and whenever they can get to it, they can get to it, but I don't wanna hold this up. So I would be inclined to, if we are in agreement on those things, move this forward and the city council wants to entertain their feedback before they approve it, they will have that opportunity, I think. But we just don't know what their timeline is, and they want to stop this process if they.
No, I think you guys have addressed all the concerns and. Fine, it's gonna be.
One more. Yeah. I want to ask you, you're the irrigation guy. How important do you feel like it is for us to reinsert it now? Would it be, because it wouldn't be that hard to do it?
I think so that if you want to look at the paragraph, I can pull it up. There's a paragraph at the very end that I don't know who wrote that, Brian, did you, or maybe Corbin wrote something we put in. I think
Les gave me some.
Okay,
comments.
I think it captures the core protections and it's not withholding this conversation up for what I wrote, and I think we can actually look at.
Okay.
Yeah, in section 8, Terry is in there, the agriculture, irrigation conditions and development responsibility.
Right. I just want to make sure that the guru was good.
Fred, did you get a chance to comment yet about it?
No, I didn't, but I could see a lot of things. Do you want me to see a lot of things, or just say I'm pretty good with it, with all this discussion and
Say what you feel you need to say.
yeah, I think we should move this along.
Okay. And I think the irrigation stuff is one of those things, maybe we can, as the agricultural committee moves forward, as soon as they feel like they've got something that they want to give us, then we revisit it
Exactly,
then.
yeah, we can fine tune this later
Right,
if we need to.
I have a question.
Yeah, oh gee.
So, talking about irrigation, but it was also stormwater oversight was something that was mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Would that be part and parcel to the irrigation?
I think that what I wrote didn't specifically address stormwater other than historic, or, maybe runoff that might come off of one parcel into another. We talked about that, not as stormwater as a whole. Do you have anything else like that? I just want to be clear, is the consensus that we, on the 75 feet from a neighboring dwelling, on those setbacks, are you guys saying we should get rid of the setbacks entirely, or saying that the feeding area, like where you actually have troughs and waters, needs to be off the fence line, but we need to get clear on that, because we need to update whatever we're proposing.
Well, I think it is clear in here, and I'm good with that language. It's
Has there just been misreading then? That people, because if they're misreading it, maybe we need more clarity.
It's 75 feet from areas used primarily for feeding, confinement, or manure storage shall not be located within 75 feet of any dwelling on an existing parcel.
In confinement's the issue.
I'm sorry, an adjoining parcel. So it's your neighbors, you gotta be 75 feet from your neighbor's house or barn or whatever, for your feeding, seed, feeding
But
operation.
I think confining is the word that's a problem, because if the word confining is there, that means that the animals
we're not talking about feeding 75, so then we should fix that language so that it says the, you know, like you're saying, try some of the troughs, but the space can be open, that they can go over to the fence line.
Yeah, it's called confinement. I don't think we need to change anything. It's where you're stable. If you're building a new stable for your horses or your cows, it's gotta be 75 feet away from your neighbor's house.
I think that's what the problem is 70, then what do you do with the rest of that 75 feet? Because I think it is
That's where you're
reasonable.
confined. They can walk in that area. You just can't confine them in that area.
So
You
you,
can't-
so envision a barn. And you got a barn where they go inside and I'm top horses, but you know, or a cow. They go inside, you feed them in the barn and that's a stall, it's their shelter. But they also have room to move around and that's their corral, their move around space that comes from the barn out. And many of those go, just open up and go straight over to the property line so they can go up there and move around and look. So that's a confinement area also. They're confined because they may have, if they have a 12 by 12 stall, that's the where they eat. And you can close them in if you want, but
I guess we have different
Yeah,
views
I
of
don't see that.
confinement. I wouldn't call that confinement.
I would call it confinement because I have that.
Your arena is confinement?
If you're keeping horses in it, that's confined.
Yeah,
They're
but
confined
you
to the-
run them in you let them go in the arena, they run around.
That's
not
then-
confinement.
So if I'm saying, if I have a barn and I have stalls where my horses go in, but I have a fence that goes as big as this room so they can move around on my property. But my property line is that wall and my horses can walk back to that property line, to that fence line. That they're still confined because they're not allowed to go out in my pasture, they're not allowed to go out in my field, they're not allowed to go in my driveway or get out in
I
the street,
think we
that's
need to
confinement.
define confinement.
Right, we need to figure out a way.
Confinement, i.e. where they sleep at night.
I consider the barn confinement.
But I'm telling, I wouldn't, I would say that's confinement, and I think they're thinking that's confinement also.
So Brian,
How
I
do we
think
fix
we're
that,
all on the
okay?
same page, that we want people to have their animals get to the property line. But not have their feeding troughs and whatever right on the property line. So how can we, and or Corbin,
How do we fix this?
how can we fix this?
So
We lack the word.
the horse is gonna do more than go to the property line and look around. Okay, so what do you put signs up, you know, don't poop in this area?
They're gonna poop, but you're gonna say on your property. But, and you put an electric fence, I put an electric fence along the edge, so they don't put their heads over and bend the fence or anything like that, but those are things that you do as a property owner, but it doesn't say my horse has to be 75 feet away from the house that's on the other side, and they can't move around.
This isn't saying that either, it's strictly for concentrated feeding. Right, so you can pasture up to the fence line.
But.
How about
You don't understand.
Excluding pasturing.
No, because you're talking about horses, people have a pasture. Because I'm one of those.
What
You
what's
have a
concentrated feeding?
Well, I think it's talking about a feedlot.
That's where you feed them.
I think it's talking about a feedlot.
Typically, a concentrated feedlot requires 500 to a quarter mile separation. Because we're talking about putting several hundred animals into a confined space. Nobody up here is doing that, yeah.
Right, but they were.
So that means that it doesn't matter, you can patch up to the fence.
Not according.
So Corbin, the difference is,
Pasture, Corbin, it's not pasture.
Okay.
so a farmer may have access or leased land throughout the valley, and they go graze their cattle. Or whatever, all over on grass throughout the summertime. In the wintertime, there's not grass for them to feed, and so. If we're make it efficient to feed them hay in the wintertime, often they'll have them in a much smaller area.
Yes.
Feed them hay throughout the winter, water them until the pastures are bare. So that is what we're trying to talk about.
That's part of what, yeah, but that is definitely.
Area, that would be the area primarily for feeding.
Yes.
And that is saying 75 feet away from the.
That would require, and if that requires double fences, I think that's a problem, but if we could find some way to say, the feeding troughs have to be 75 feet away. Even though the space
So get more
is there.
specific, rather than saying property line that's, you know, your neighbor.
I don't know, we need it, I think it's good like it is, I don't see.
Well, if you say it's good, do you feel like that it doesn't require the double fences that people were worried about?
Yeah, I don't think it requires that at all.
Okay.
As long as the feeding apparatus is more than 75 feet. You know, if you're dropping the hay bales or if you're putting out the corn hopper or something. As long as that is 75 feet from a neighboring dwelling.
Okay.
Well, so can you just say feeding, rather than, I mean.
It says feeding.
That, take away confinement out then. How can we finesse this language so it's more clear?
I think the confinement issue, at least in my brain, confinement means there is a corral or some fenced area where the animals are being.
Yeah, and if that fence has to be set, and if that fence has to be 75 feet away, then I think that's part of the problem.
I get what you're saying. Okay, so can you, why, really, again, can you put excluding pasture?
Can we just take out confinement?
Can we take out the word confinement, the feeding, so the feeding has to be 75 feet away?
Well, I think the confinement you need for, barns and for.
That's it, the barn's covered, I think, in the building, which is a 70 the barn is a building.
Well, we talked about corrals, and in corrals, they're supposed to be 25 feet from the property line.
And
Or
I think that's a
75
problem,
feet.
I don't think,
75
I don't think the corral should have to be set 25 feet from the property line. I think a corral can go right to the property line. Because a lot of people use their exterior fence as part of their, line for their corral. So we're creating exactly what the problem is, if we're saying you have to have 25 feet. Then you're saying you can't use your fence line, we're not talking about subdivisions where people have,
Yeah, this is an agricultural zone, so I would think that people would expect that, I agree with you.
without the 25 feet requirement. My horses, I have a enclosure that is a confinement area, so I can lock my horses up when they come out of the barn if I need to. And my fence line is one side of that enclosure.
Make the feeding apparatus 75 feet, leave it at that.
I like that,
And remove the confinement.
okay?
Yep.
Okay, we'll change it if we need to going forward.
I want to open one more.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, that's why we're here. So right now it says 75 feet from an existing building. But what if the existing building, here's the lot line and the 70, and this building is on adjoining property?
Yeah.
There's the lot line and it's 25 feet in. So does that mean you can go 50 feet in?
Yep. And 75 feet from the.
Exist the building,
From the building.
not the lot line.
Lot.
Okay,
Building.
all right.
Okay.
Maybe Tyson should have done this motion.
I got it right.
I just want to double check my notes with you guys. You did talk about ag building setbacks, I'm just gonna make sure I just wanna make sure we got that right. What are they currently set at? So. What's this series on this one?
So for corral, stable, or building for keeping animals or fowl, do you want to remove the setback requirement of 25 feet?
I think building, and if we can make building and corral two separate things, I'm okay with saying that the building, the barn, 25 feet, I'm okay with that. But not the corral, because the corral is an extension of the barn and your fence might be one part of that.
What page are you on, Brian?
There are page numbers
Page
on.
4 under
other uses,
under land use table.
Okay.
So it's currently listed under agricultural uses. Or ag related non-commercial uses. We have corral, stable, or building for keeping animals or fowl is a permitted use, but it needs to be no less than 25 feet from any side or rear lot.
But it says less than, it used to be no less than.
Yeah. No closer than 25. So change that.
Yeah, that needs to be correct. No, I corrected that.
So change that to 10 and let's take out corrals from that. And put the setback to 10, which is just like a normal for any building.
Okay,
Okay.
What page is this now?
4.
I don't have any,
15.
I don't have any pages.
Okay, and then corral.
Oh, got it.
Be their own.
Thank you. It's getting late.
Would you, instead of corral, should we say barn, stable, or building for keeping animals?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it could be a loading shed, I'm fine with that being farther away. Because snow is gonna fall off the roof, and if the roof is that big, the snow should not come off on the fence or on the neighbor's property.
Okay.
Okay, so corrals, how do you want to do corrals?
I just take them out and.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, I motion to move. E104-2 or 83 on to the city council for consideration with the following corrections. That the horses and stables can be listed as a primary use and not accessory. That on number 9, other uses, we remove corrals and replace it with barns and change the setback from 25 feet to 10 feet. And for concentrated feeding of livestock, that the setback be from the feeding source, the troughs, and watering troughs and feeding mangers and troughs. That be 75 feet, but the confinement area does not have a setback.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I'm good with that, yeah.
I will second that motion.
Aren't we eliminating the word confinement?
Yeah, you said
That's what
Yeah,
he
it is.
essentially said.
Okay, are we ready for an all in favor? All in favor? Aye. And
Did you do it?
how do you do?
Fantastic. Well done.
There, motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye. Aye. Guys, that was a lot. There was a lot of public comment that I think we was hard to.
It was expecting.
And I was on, yes.
Thank you.